Chapter 11 Yin-Yang 5 Phases Secrets. Now that it was time to leave, Yang Chen wasted no time. After handing the duties back to the old executioner, Yang Chen left the county seat empty-handed without a second thought. Of course, all of his luggage was stored in his achievement ring. To be able to meet Sun Qingxu and Zhanxian was an unexpected pleasure, and on his first meeting with the two women, the encounter had ended full of goodwill. Yang Chen wouldn't deliberately pursue anything, but it would still be rude to refuse such good karma when it was an inadvertent result. Yang Chen very quickly disappeared from the eyes of those county seat commoners, and after a few months nobody any longer thought about an executioner named Yang Chen. Yang Chen was now drooling before a great pile of cultivation techniques. Since leaving the immortal executioner stage, his postnatal 5 phases spiritual roots were already completely full, and moreover completely full in yin-yang 5 phases. Yang Chen couldn't avoid giving himself a few introductory cultivation techniques. According to Yang Chen's original plan, as long as he had full fire spiritual roots, he would naturally cultivate according to the road of his previous life, advancing step by step. After all, Yang Chen had even cultivated to great primary golden immortal, and with his fire spiritual roots completely full, he could save at least half the time it took in his previous life. But now, not only was Yang Chen's fire spiritual roots full, but all his spiritual roots plus the yin-yang attributes were all full. This made other thoughts rise in his mind. In his previous life there were a group of quintuplets who each had one of the 5 phases, focusing on cultivating theirs. The 5 brothers' spirits were connected, and when they joined hands they formed a 5 phases great formation, becoming extremely potent in both attack and defense, while mutually engendering each other. Ordinary cultivators that hardly differed from them in strength might not be their enemy when they acted together. But those were 5 brothers cooperating. Yang Chen now had filled double yin-yang, 5 phases spiritual roots, he could cultivate all 5 phases arts, and they were controlled by a single person, even more superior than 5 people acting together. Besides, with all yin-yang 5 phases, it was really a bit of a waste to only cultivate one. Not only that, but Yang Chen still remembered what the elderly lord said in the immortal executioner stage. With great yin-yang 5 phases double cultivation, he could be even more tremendous than the elderly lord, even without an 8 trigram stove. Yang Chen couldn't forgive himself if he wasted such potential. Yang Chen didn't want to give up on this opportunity no matter what, that's why great yin-yang 5 phases double cultivation had already become Yang Chen's future cultivation direction. Only, what Yang Chen had to worry about now was cultivation techniques. Yang Chen had obtained a lot of them while beheading immortals in the heavenly court. A wood tress ECRETS, B wood tress ECRETS, D fire tress ECRETS, G metal tress ECRETS, E earth tress ECRETS, J water tress ECRETS, 6 articles of true secrets that were all able to transfer great yin-yang, 5 phases most basic innate chi, corresponding to the innate chi of each attribute. Simply the best yin-yang 5 phases cultivation arts in the world. If he could get C fire tress ECRETS, H metal tress ECRETS, F earth tress ECRETS, and I water tress ECRETS to match, he would have a full set of great yin-yang, 5 phases true secrets. But these great yin-yang 5 phases true secrets had one condition, and that was that he had to refine all the yin-yang, 5 phases innate chi, otherwise he would be unable to cultivate. It was just unfortunate that, even though Yang Chen knew the locations of the majority of the yin-yang 5 phases innate chi, they weren't easy to reach. Even if he wanted to cultivate these true secrets, it was impossible at the moment. While the other techniques he had received were also good, as well as formation arts, they were practically all high level and impossible to practice with Yang Chen's current cultivation. The trump cards left behind by those immortals were lost arts and absolutely not something someone who had just begun to cultivate and still not entered the chi refining stage could covet. Thus, Yang Chen could only first use some rudimentary 5 phases arts to lay a foundation in the place of the great yin-yang 5 phases secrets until such a time that he could obtain yin-yang 5 phases innate chi and begin to cultivate the true great yin-yang 5 phases secrets. The second level arts of the 3 purity secrets had already thoroughly absorbed the killing aura around Yang Chen, turning everything into divine consciousness. Only, this killing aura and killing intent hadn't disappeared completely. As long as Yang Chen willed it, his divine consciousness could swiftly turn into that kind of killing intent again, an extremely sharp weapon to awe enemies. By now Yang Chen's divine consciousness was already on the level of the late foundation building stage from his last life. Although divine consciousness was enormously useful in cultivation, without any more killing intent, the 3 purity secrets couldn't advance by leaps and bounds like that and could only gradually advance step by step, in streams flowing together into rivers. At present he first needed the strength to protect himself. Otherwise, no matter how formidable his divine consciousness, he was still useless without a speck of magical power. Yang Chen naturally wouldn't make a mistake like that. The cultivation from his precious life that he was most familiar with was naturally the Pure Yang Palace's Great Sun Fierce Yang Central Scripture. This was a required course for fire cultivation in the Pure Yang Palace and was also the foundation scripture Yang Chen was most familiar with. Yang Chen's first cultivation was with this one. When he started cultivating the Great Sun Fierce Yang Central Scripture in his previous life, he had still spent practically a whole month before he could sense a trace of magical power. But right now Yang Chen only needed to start cultivating before his body began to frantically produce magical power. But the knowledge of more than several 100,000 times of cultivating it in his last life, the Great Sun Fierce Yang Central Scripture, had practically become instinctual to Yang Chen, basically without any deviation in comprehension or errors in cultivation. Adding the divine consciousness far more formidable than his magical power, Yang Chen felt that most basic trace of magical power by just circulating it once. Soon after, the bits and bits of magical power began to flow along familiar pathways under the control of his powerful divine consciousness, warming, nourishing, opening the energy channels. But this one circuit, Yang Chen discovered that the benefits he had obtained in the Immortal Executioner stage were, by far, not just as tiny as full spiritual roots. All his flesh had improved substantially as it was nourished by the enormous life essence of the Immortals. The strength of his body and capacity of his energy channels were at a level that Yang Chen found outrageous. The difficulty he remembered from breaking through the key meridian gates the first time he cultivated practically couldn't be felt. Without trying he didn't know, but with one circuit he discovered that his body was actually even stronger than after he originally passed into the foundation building stage. There were close to no impurities within his body, as if it had already been strengthened by the spiritual force at the Immortal Executioner stage and was strengthened even more efficiently than the spiritual force. In fact, that was the life force of Immortals including the Jade Emperor, the Queen Mother, and the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Spacious and pliable energy channels, plus magical power completely in line with his physical attributes, Yang Chen simply didn't dare believe that this was the effect of the first circuit. At the end of one cycle, Yang Chen even had the feeling of magical power flowing through his meridians. Opening his eyes, Yang Chen discovered that his ears and eyes already seemed a lot sharper than before. In the past he could only see clearly for a couple dozen meters, but now his clarity had more than doubled and he even seemed to hear traces of the motions of ants crawling beneath his feet. Slowly getting up from under the blazing sun, Yang Chen felt the overflowing magical power within him and couldn't help laughing. Shortly after extending one finger, a ball of flame appeared on the tip, swaying back and forth along with Yang Chen's movements, changing shape as it wished. Phew, extinguishing the flame with a breath, Yang Chen was indescribably relaxed. He had stepped into the first level Kai refining of his last life by practicing just once. For ordinary people to enter the Kai gathering stage, they first had to be able to sense the spiritual influence between heaven and earth and draw it into their bodies, and they also had to be able to complete a full cycle to draw that trace into their Danshan, then they would have truly entered the realm of Kai gathering. Only, to be able to take this step was also considered entering the first level of Kai gathering. Completing a full cycle on the first time practicing was impossible even for the most talented genius. Normally, even with full spiritual roots and exceptional perception, this step would at least take a few months from start to finish. Opening the vital meridian points would even more require unremitting spiritual force accumulation and perseveringly attacking to be able to surmount. The road of cultivation wasn't smooth sailing, not 1 in 10 could step into the first level of Kai gathering from the start of cultivation. Yang Chen was unique in having 10,000 years of cultivation experience. However, Yang Chen stopped cultivating after completing one cycle. The key to yin-yang 5 phases double cultivation was to balance the yin-yang 5 phases. Even though there was no need for exact equality, less differences was better to avoid imbalance. Of course, the yin-yang 5 phases being completely balanced was the best, and if there was some difference, one could only equalize the yin 5 phases and the yang 5 phases, then level them out someday in the future. The Great Sun Fierce Yang Central Scripture counted as yang fire among the yin-yang 5 phases. Yang Chen was now looking for suitable foundation cultivation techniques to completely cultivate the other 9 kinds of attributes as well, then he could accomplish 5 phases natural engenderment within himself. Yang Chen had a great pile of fire attribute central scriptures, from low level to high, but he didn't have many of the other attributes. However, the only thing that made Yang Chen happy was that he had a few low-level foundation cultivation techniques on hand for a few elements, especially a blue wave water blade secret for water attribute foundation cultivation. Even though Blue Wave Water Blade's secret was an offensive technique and very ordinary at that, Yang Chen didn't care. He wanted this Blue Wave Water Blade's secret to cultivate water attribute spiritual force in order to enter the Sun Painting Mountain Medicine Garden. Besides the 7-step bewitching instant kill formation, entering the sun-painting mountain medicine garden still had one other requirement, and that was water attribute spiritual force. The medicine garden was something left behind by an immortal in the immortal executioner stage that was found and entered by later generations. Even though Yang Chen didn't know just what rare panacea were inside, the sect that discovered the medicine garden had sold large quantities of elixirs for a very long time, and their disciples had also been enviably rich in pills, presumably their harvest wasn't small. There was still some time before the Pure Yang Palace's main sect accepted disciples, and Yang Chen was just going to go pick up the medicine garden in this time. Relying on Yang Chen's experience in compounding pills from his last life, he estimated he wouldn't have any issues with pills for cultivation at least before the Yuning stage. Even though it was the first time Yang Chen came into contact with water attribute techniques, whether in his last life or this one, such a basic technique was still simple in the extreme before a person with the experience of a great primary golden immortal. The difference from the Great Sun Fierce Yang central scripture was that he had to spend a bit of time on the Blue Wave Water Blade secret. 3 days later, he had also successfully completed one cycle of the Blue Wave Water Blade secret, equally stepping into the first level stage. Even though his 5 phases were complete, since Yang Chen wanted to cultivate great yin-yang 5 phases secrets, he naturally had to match yin and yang. Fortunately he had foundation techniques for all yang 5 phases, but he lacked 2 of the yin 5 phases. It couldn't be helped, he could only first cultivate the yang 5 phases to get a bit of strength to defend himself. As for the yin 5 phases, he could wait until he had gathered the cultivation techniques before cultivating it. Yang Chen spent about 10 days on the remaining 3 attribute techniques, then having completely entered a more or less correct realm. The next days were mainly for Yang Chen to try controlling the 5 kinds of techniques to circulate simultaneously and to mutually engender each other, which took a lot of time. In this time, his formidable divine consciousness finally showed its conclusive effect. Circulating the 5 kinds of technique simultaneously was very unpracticed at first and split his concentration 5 ways, extremely difficult. Several times in a row he was defeated because he was unable to harmonize them. After Yang Chen had wholeheartedly cultivated 3 purities secret a few times, with a level heart and calm kai, and relying on his formidable divine consciousness, after a few more tries, he finally managed to move the 5 phases together. Having experienced his first success, what happened next was only to be expected. In another 5 days, Yang Chen could already skillfully enter a state of the Yang 5 phases, engendering each other. Strictly speaking, the 5 kinds of spiritual force wouldn't lose to the spiritual force of an ordinary person's second-level refined tools. However, in the end they were still only 5 kinds of spiritual force. Yang Chen's trouble for stepping into the second level would be 5 times that of others. Even with the convenience of 5 phases engendering each other, it would still expend 3 times the labor. Fortunately Yang Chen's spiritual roots were all full now, and he was suited for practically all attributes of spiritual force, with outstanding aptitude and outstanding physical condition, plus transcendent experience, he could increase his cultivation speed. Yang Chen's final verdict was that, if he didn't have any outside forces helping, his cultivation speed in this world might still be less than half as fast. However, even with a slower cultivation speed, Yang Chen would be a lot more difficult to deal with than ordinary people of the same level. With the 5 phases gathered, Yang Chen already had a 5 phases great formation, making him invincible from the start in both attack and defense. Yang Chen kept cultivating as he traveled. He had too little spiritual force to start refining tools, let alone being unable to control swords to fly. Even if he was given a flying sword to use on the ground, Yang Chen still couldn't control it. What the majority of ordinary people used at this stage was talismans. If there were weapons, they were the most basic, they might be a bit better than what mortals had, but far from the level of tools. The most suitable to use for traveling was the Blue Cloud Talisman. The Blue Cloud Talisman could lighten one's weight, naturally allowing for higher speed and without being very tiring. Since Yang Chen had started to cultivate, he would naturally use cultivation to settle the problems he faced. Yang Chen, drawing talismans was a piece of cake. Yang Chen didn't know how long it had been since he touched drawn talismans, but his preparations were sufficient, with a set of any materials. Once his magical power had achieved some minor success, he started drawing these simple talismans. Yang Chen nodded with satisfaction as the first talisman lay in his hands. If those cultivators saw this, they would definitely stare wide-eyed and gasp in amazement. Even the simplest talismans weren't something that could be completed successfully on the first try. Yang Chen currently had one advantage, and that was that he could use the same kind of spiritual force, no matter which type the talisman required, making the process extremely smooth. After drawing more than 10 blue cloud talismans in a row, Yang Chen also made a few dozen offensive fireball talismans, wood thunder talismans, 30,000 caddies talismans, and others for self-protection. When he had placed these well-made talismans in the achievement ring, Yang Chen's heart suddenly twitched. The Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's universe-raising treasure secret could raise the intrinsic quality when refining tools, then couldn't it have the same result on paper talismans? If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 12 To kill for a secret, just kill. When thinking of the universe-raising treasure secret, Yang Chen suddenly thought of something funny. It seemed that the higher level it was, the higher the heavenly court immortal who passed it one was, the simpler the name. Let alone A wood true secret, B wood true secret and such, heavenly spirit treasure refining secret, earthly fiend sacrificial formation secret, universe raising treasure secret, so simple it made your hair stand up. But in the mortal world, a lot of sex-central scriptures were as tremendous as they could be, like Great Sun Celestial Flame Emperor Tyrant secret, like Autumn Sunflower Yin Water Profound Element secret, like 5 Kai Flame Light Bone Refining secret, like Boundless Radiant Flame Central Scripture. If they could be longer then they would be. If they could sound more intimidating then they would be. But those names that were frequently long enough to be a mess, with mortal sects hating that they couldn't choose even more earth-shaking names, Immortals seemed more interested in the essential contents, simply giving them a few characters to describe their features. He estimated that if he didn't have to differentiate the source, Grand Supreme Elderly Lord would probably have named his universe-raising treasure secret as Raising Treasure Secret. It seemed he had done so with 3 Purity Secret, and he hadn't even named the Elderly Lord Pill Arts Yang Chen had named. But this was only one of Yang Chen's casual thoughts, just a minor detail. What Yang Chen was thinking about right now was whether the universe-raising treasure secret would be effective on drawing talismans. Strictly speaking, there was a great pile of cultivation techniques in Yang Chen's mind right now, and practically all of them were high-level techniques. Only what he had learned from the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, whether the 3 Purities secret, the universe-raising treasure secret, or the Elderly Lord Pill Arts, all of them could be cultivated from the Kai gathering stage and used until the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord stage, their efficacy rising along with cultivation level. When all was said and done, these were true invaluable treasures. But even so, the Elderly Lord's cultivation techniques weren't something that could be easily grasped by Kai gathering stage people. Originally the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord had thought Yang Chen would be able to understand these mysteries after reaching the Yuanying stage, too bad he hadn't foreseen that Yang Chen would actually have the cultivation experience of a great primary golden immortal. Yang Chen read over the universe-raising treasure secret very lightly, then started to ponder its mysteries, spending 2 days' time before raising his head with a smile. The Elderly Lord's raising treasure secret was wide-ranging and profound, but he had finally figured out a bit of the beginning. The remainder required practical experimentation to figure out. This bit of introductory content was actually the key to cultivating it, the operation method. But that alone wasn't enough, the universe-raising treasure secret contained hundreds of techniques that could be assembled in different combinations to suit different materials. At that time the Elderly Lord had given him the mnemonic chant, but in order to understand what materials suited what techniques, there was no way other than for Yang Chen to constantly experiment and ponder. If he said he'd do it then he'd do it, his cultivation might be at the first level, but his 5 phases attributes were complete, and with the talismans he had drawn himself, experimenting wasn't any major inconvenience. Moreover, with such lowest level items in Yang Chen's cultivation experience, he could know some things without even experimenting. His hand issued a line of red light that softly covered that fireball talisman. The fireball talisman only shone slightly, then recovered to normal shortly thereafter, seemingly not the slightest bit different from a normal fireball talisman. But holding it in his hand, Yang Chen could feel that the fireball talisman had undergone some minute change. Phew, the seemingly improved fireball talisman suddenly ignited, shooting out an enormous fireball that blasted a nearby rock into pieces. At the same time Yang Chen's other hand also shot out a fireball, but much smaller than the one just now, and even though it also broke a rock, the difference in power between the 2 fireballs was clear. With his experience, Yang Chen could see with just a glance that the power of the talisman that had passed the universe-raising treasure secret was at least 20% higher. This was still when Yang Chen was just at the first level of cultivation, it would increase even more as his cultivation advanced. Of course, that was only talismans. As an experienced person, Yang Chen knew better than anyone what the significance of such lowest-level talismans was. At the same time as he was inwardly proud, he also couldn't help sighing in admiration over the universe-raising treasure secret. However, after one sigh he also recalled that this was Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's art, an effect like that was required. Thinking of this he also very soon stopped being amazed. With this successful experiment, Yang Chen disregarded everything else to first use the universe-raising treasure secret on all the talismans he had on hand. After a short time, when no more large improvements could be made, he set off in one direction, rushing towards the 500-kilometer distant Sun Painting Mountain. The Sun Painting Mountain was always in a verdant and lush place, but for some reason the spiritual influence here didn't quite suit the scenery. Therefore there were no cultivators here. Even though the scenery was beautiful, it was still an old forest deep in the mountains where men's footprints were rare and there were basically no mortals around. This also led to this being a haven for wild animals and one could frequently see some vicious beasts. At the same time, this was also one of the reasons Yang Chen had to prepare so many talismans. But the foundation of the first level of Kai refining, there was basically no need for Yang Chen to fear these animals, at the same time it also made him even more agile and lithe, enough to deal with the complex terrain here. The spiritual influence here was lacking, but that wasn't because this place was barren and unclean, it was because of that medicine garden, which concentrated and absorbed the spiritual influence within hundreds of kilometers, leading to this condition. Yang Chen knew this bit very well. Yang Chen found an open space within a dense thicket and sat down to meditate a while. After recovering his spiritual force and physical strength, he began to look all around, searching for the location of the medicine garden. Unable to rise into the sky to observe, he could only climb vantage points. Yang Chen expended a lot of effort to roughly ascertain the direction through the paths of mountain rivers. This was the effect of the basic formation arts from his previous life, otherwise it would have been impossible to discover. The reason that sect could find the medicine garden in his last life was because a severely injured great scholar at the peak of Jindan had carelessly escaped here, stumbling onto the location. It was basically impossible for ordinary people to care about this place. After resting once again and recovering his physical strength and spiritual power, Yang Chen stood and suddenly turned his head to speak in one direction. "You've followed me for so long, shouldn't you show yourself?" Along with Yang Chen's speech, a man's silhouette slowly appeared at the top of a not distant tree, showing a somewhat unexpected expression and even more surprise and embarrassment over being discovered by his target and consequently sulked. "You actually discovered me?" As early as when Yang Chen finished refining his pile of talismans, he had discovered that someone was following him. The pursuer behaved extremely brazenly, his divine consciousness sweeping pompously, as if he basically didn't put Yang Chen in his sight. His divine consciousness wasn't very strong either, Yang Chen estimated it was at most a fellow at the third level of Kai gathering. Yang Chen didn't know why this fellow followed him and didn't pay him any attention. On the contrary, as long as he didn't take any initiative to provoke him, Yang Chen didn't want trouble. Additionally, Yang Chen was still a bit afraid that there was divine consciousness attached to the pill Zhanxian had given him. Yang Chen didn't want to let her know his secrets, so he always endured patiently. Naturally, this fellow had followed him the whole way to the Sun Painting Mountain. Almost from the moment they entered the Sun Painting Mountain, Yang Chen had discovered that the divine consciousness Zhanxian had wrapped up in the pill had already disappeared, presumably the distance already exceeded the range Zhanxian could sense. It wasn't that Zhanxian could monitor the several thousand kilometers distant Yang Chen at any time, only that, with the divine consciousness within it, the instant the pull was destroyed, the divine consciousness would alert its owner, making the position known. A young man appeared in front of Yang Chen's eyes, dressed extremely luxuriously, 20-something years old, eyes constantly flickering, apparently just contemplating something. Having his concealment broken by Yang Chen's shout, after asking a question out of astonishment, he flew into a range and snorted coldly. A tiny executioner, deliberately mystifying things. "I don't care how you discovered me, hand over the thing Zhanxian gave you, and I won't kill you." The gift of thanks that Zhanxian gave Yang Chen on the execution ground back then was a body refining pill. This body refining pill was useless to people who had already started to cultivate and could only improve the spiritual roots of ordinary people a little bit, but had a good chance of inciting the spiritual roots of ordinary people to appear. It might be that Fairy Shai gave Yang Chen this pill back then out of gratitude in order to give him the chance of cultivating. However, other people didn't know what it was, only aware that Fairy Shan had given him something good. Those people at the execution ground with their own status wouldn't attack a mortal, but that didn't stop them from telling their juniors. Thus, someone started to covet what Yang Chen had, but Yang Chen disappeared very quickly, so a lot of people started to search within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Appearing here was the one winner who stumbled on Yang Chen and sensed the divine consciousness within the pill. "You're talking about this? Here." Yang Chen casually tossed over the pill that was completely useless to him. He already had complete postnatal spiritual roots, so this body refining pill was basically rubbish to him. Besides, as long as he wanted, he could have countless such things after obtaining the medicine garden. Body refining pill. This youth clearly knew what was what, reaching out and beckoning, the body-refining pill swiftly flew into his hand, seeing what it was at a quick glance. Seeing that this pill was an elixir that required at least foundation building to refine, the youth felt a burst of satisfaction. Even though it was meaningless to him, he could still use it to trade for some other things or perhaps some favors. Following Yang Chen this whole way wasn't a waste. But Yang Chen's great primary golden immortal insight and this pill being useless to him, as long as this fellow didn't obstruct his work, Yang Chen wouldn't mind giving him some benefits to get rid of him. Immortals had the vision of immortals. However, things turn out contrary to what is desired. Yang Chen wanted this youth to leave after getting the pill, so he could collect the medicine garden as he wished. He didn't expect that this youth would roll his eyes, his heart unexpectedly holding a poisonous plan. "You're an executioner, killing people without regard, what did you come here for?" "I think it might be something shameful." The youth put away the body-refining pill and looked ominously at Yang Chen. A lot of people knew that Fairy Shy had given this pill to Yang Chen, so if Yang Chen made some noise later and implicated him, then it would be an enormously bad turn. Even if the youth was certain Yang Chen didn't recognize him, that just meant he was certain of 10,000 to 1, but feared the 1 in 10,000. Only the dead can keep a secret forever. Beheading demons and eliminating devils, acting on behalf of the Tao of Heaven, that is our duty. The youth thus shouted virtuously in front of Yang Chen. "The unlawful things you desire at this place, everyone can punish, pay with your life." He pointed with both hands, just about to launch the sword finger he was most proud of to take Yang Chen's life, but he only finished half the motion before there was a sudden flash before his eyes, a line of ice-cold light flashing past his eyes. Immediately feeling a chill at his neck, he sank into darkness. Across from him, Yang Chen had at some unknown time taken an executioner's blade in his hands and chopped down with practiced ease. The youth's head flew a meter into the air, blood spurting out, and his corpse crumpled to the ground. Despite already having cultivation at the 3rd level of Kai Gathering, when facing Yang Chen, he was still treated like an ordinary mortal. Without any idea how Yang Chen discovered him, without using any means to protect himself, he had been directly beheaded by one competent blade from Yang Chen. "Zhao." With a swing of his hand, the executioner blade instantly disappeared. Before the corpse fell to the ground, Yang Chen casually pinched the tiny cosmos bag at the youth's waist and with a soft pull, took it into his hand. "If you're going to kill to keep secrets, just kill, why use so many justifications?" Blurting out a lecture, Yang Chen didn't pay attention to anything else. "With your mouth saying yes but heart saying no like this, words differing from action, there's no need for a third calamity to descend, you'll still die without an unmarked grave. Dying early or dying late are no different, be on your way at ease." Softly squeezing that cosmos bag, Yang Chen casually threw it into the achievement ring. A tiny Kai refining 3rd level fellow who even drooled over body refining pills, what could he have that would be worth Yang Chen's attention? He didn't know how long ago it was since that mountain god left the medicine garden here, but presumably no less than 1,000 years. In fact, even for the lowest level mountain god, the time required to ascend to the spiritual world and then again to the immortal world, 1,000 years was nothing. Swiftly walking over in the direction he had been investigating, his divine consciousness spread out. After frantically sweeping in a circle, Yang Chen revealed a smile and charged with large strides towards a tree thick enough to wrap one's arms around. Soon about to collide with a tree, Yang Chen still moved forward without pause. Just as one foot touched the tree, the scenery before his eyes suddenly changed. A vast dome suddenly appeared above Yang Chen, as if he stood in a great palace hall. On the dome were 7 by 7, 49 coldly glittering flying swords arranged in a regular formation, as if they were 49 vicious enemies looking for people to devour, silently watching Yang Chen's actions. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 13 Peeled Fruits Best for Consumption. 7 by 7, 49 raised flying swords made people in Yang Chen's previous life terror-stricken at the news of the 7 steps enchanting deadly array. This place was left behind by the mountain god for later generations before ascending to heaven, but due to some unknown reason, it couldn't be passed on. Not to mention that Yang Chen at present had cultivated only to the first Kai layer, even for Yuning beginning stage experts, one wrong step and they would also be killed by those 49 flying swords. In his previous life, the sect which discovered and occupied the Yang Mountain Medicinal Garden paid the price with several Yuning experts. At this moment, Yang Chen was confronting such a frighteningly great enchantment. However, Yang Chen knew the key to entering the spell, thus in his opinion, it wasn't the least bit dangerous. Within the enormous palace hall, there was not a single object or soul apart from Yang Chen present. The floor beneath his feet was made up of uniformly patterned square tiles, as smooth as a mirror. However, it gave off a kind of warm feeling as it was being stepped on. Here the spirit power was pretty close to ordinary, no longer resembling the thin spirit power outside. Yang Chen was exactly in the middle of Palace Hall. Passing through it, he came across that camouflaged large tree which spread up until here. This exact piece of the slab under his foot should be the starting point of the 7 steps enchanting deadly array. 49 steps, every step having its fixed position. With a single wrong step, a life would end. Although Yang Chen had planned everything in advance and also had accumulated a lot of experience, he was still extremely nervous as he stood at the edge of death. But after carefully taking a few steps, Yang Chen's mind finally regained its calmness. He was taking one step at a time, moving carefully towards the center of the sword spell. Finally, when he was at the 49th step, he stepped on a white stone, following which his silhouette flashed and disappeared from its original place. Just a moment ago, Yang Chen's step landed on the ground with a crash. He still hadn't distinctly seen anything under his foot, but apparently he had stepped on a lump of something that crashed apart with a thunderous sound. Although he was surprised, his spiritual awareness had already started to sense his surroundings. At once, he found himself in some sort of space. There was one very large palace in the center, on top of which the familiar dome resided. The interior of the palace, however, wasn't entirely empty. Rather, it was filled with a large pile of skeletons from all kinds of beasts. The center of this huge palace was densely packed with skeletons. There were entire skeletons from various sorts of beasts, some still hadn't decayed and maintained their original appearance, some had already turned into piles of dried up bones, however. All of the beasts shared a common trait. There were sword scars present on the skulls of every beast, leading to their death. Yang Chen quickly realized that a sword was used here to kill the intruders and then throw off their corpses. Nobody had come here for a long time, however. Only a pile of skeletons which might have been strong or weak beasts or demons was discovered after the bursts of the large camouflage tree arrived. Unfortunately for them, if just one strike from the sword could kill a Yuaning expert, even though they were ferocious demon beasts, it was still impossible for them to escape. Previously, just by a glance, Yang Chen had already discovered those who had died immediately, as their corpses had not rotted. Clearly all of these demon beasts had surpassed foundation stage. There was a serpent which was several tens of feet long and had 2 raised wings on its back. One look could confirm that this was precisely a flying dragon serpent. Although the flying dragon serpent was already dead, between its eyes was a hole, pierced through by a sword. The snakeskin covering its whole body was completely intact. Both its raised wings were equally long and narrow, only its flesh had dried up. Beneath its snakeskin, its snake bones were completely intact. Only its inner dan could not be found at any place, neither could it be seen. There was a golden peng bird, the wingspan of which was several tens of feet, on top of its head was a similar scar. Its golden body was still upright, preserving its whole life's appearance. Its flesh had also dried up similarly, only the skeleton was left over. Its internal dan had also similarly disappeared. The large tiger with its head in a posture as if facing the heavens was also present. The tiger's skin was completely intact, as were his bones, and once again the inner dan couldn't be found. Unexpectedly there were several tens of such high-rank skeletons. Yang Chen was extremely amazed. Initially, he was under the impression that this was a simple medicine garden, he hadn't anticipated this kind of a pleasant surprise. Among the several skeletons, just by a quick glance, Yang Chen had determined that several of them had even exceeded the golden dan phase. All the leftovers were several foundation stage beasts. These demon beasts, hurriedly looking over these skeletons, he stored them all in his achievement ring. Yang Chen felt quite relieved. Skeletons of ordinary demon beasts were also left over, yet every part of these beasts was totally rotten and absolute waste. These things, Yang Chen naturally felt disdain for them. After having swept around with his spiritual awareness for any items worthy of being collected and having found nothing, Yang Chen started to observe his surroundings more carefully. Since there was a door here to enter into the medicine garden, surely there also had to be a pathway. Very quickly, Yang Chen discovered a white stone, identical to the one which he had stepped on within the sword spell, underground, beneath the main hall. After having observed his surroundings for some time, he did not find anything, so he stepped on the white flagstone once again. Suddenly, the landscape which was painted in front of him had suddenly changed into a small room. Inside the small room, Yang Chen found one transparent clean bottle. It looked very sophisticated on the white stone slab. When looking at the clean bottle's bottom, one could see the traces of a light blue-colored liquid, looking almost dried up. On seeing this, Yang Chen became determined to enter into the medicine garden center. The bottle before his eyes was the backbone of the medicine garden. That meant that it was the item which supplied all the drugs in the medicine garden with power. This clean bottle was that celestial being's refining tool. It absorbed spirit force and circulated it around its circumference numerous times before concentrating it in here according to clear rules defined by its original master, tending to the plant's requirements for spirit power in order to grow. The binding of this clean bottle signified that this Yang mountain now belonged to Zhanxian. In his previous life, it was said that the sect which discovered this garden required the abilities of 4 Yuaning experts to successfully collect this bottle. Nevertheless, Zhanxian did not need to go through so much trouble. The mountain god had already told all the secrets of Medicine Garden to Zhanxian when he was facing death's door. Knowing these secrets, Zhanxian bound the Medicine Garden almost effortlessly. As it should be, the most crucial secret of Medicine Garden's secret methods was the power of this liquid. Despite the fact that Zhanxian only had the cultivation of Kai layer, he used a secret method to bind the clean bottle and still had ample power to spare. When Zhanxian used that secret method on the clean bottle for a while, the clean bottle issued a burst of energy, then became light and fell down into Zhanxian's palms. Feeling the clean bottle in his hands, Zhanxian's heart was stirred. His body appeared in the center of the large medicine garden. After a quick glance, he was so stunned that he could not help blankly staring around him for a while. No matter who it was, when looking for the main ingredients for refining foundation pills, even one profound yang fruit would cost at least several thousand spirit stones. But in front of Zhanxian, they were planted like cabbages, covering his entire field of view. He was looking around blankly, so shocked he couldn't even utter a single word. The reason why foundation pills were so precious was because of the low availability of profound yang fruit. Even with large amounts of money, it was not easy to find. A superior concocting master would only use a single profound yang fruit to manufacture at most 2 foundation pills, which led to the price of foundation pill remaining so high. In front of Zhanxian's eyes, however, there was an area of at least several tens of hectares planted entirely with profound yang fruits. Though Zhanxian did not know the methods used by that mountain god, but it usually was quite difficult for the roots of the profound yang fruit to grow and survive. The leaves on all the branches were also quite thick, and on top of every tree, there was one bright red profound yang fruit, each and every one of them resembling a tiny red lantern. There were incredibly too many profound yang fruits, perhaps there were several tens of thousands. Zhanxian simply did not dare to imagine how many foundation pills could be refined from this many profound yang fruits. If so many foundation pills suddenly appeared in the city markets, how many foundation experts could it create? Reaching out his hand, Zhanxian plucked a profound yang fruit, placed it on his hand and carefully scrutinized it. The profound yang fruits which Zhanxian had seen before had all been about the size of a strawberry, but this fruit was, at least 3 times bigger, about the size of an apple. Even just holding it, Zhanxian felt a heaviness pressing down on his hand. These profound yang fruits were definitely matured for 1,000 years, or even more, thus, the medicinal effect would increase more than 10 or maybe 100-fold. But are these truly profound yang fruits? Looking at this bright red plump profound yang fruit, Zhanxian's appetite seemingly increased. Unexpectedly, without really thinking about it, Zhanxian immediately put that fruit into his mouth, taking rapid bites. A familiar sour taste filled his mouth. All of Zhanxian's 5 senses narrowed on one feeling. Sour. This was the flavor of profound yang fruit's outer skin, though it wasn't entirely bad. The reason why the flavor of the foundation pill was so unpleasant was due to this outer skin. However, Zhanxian once again wanted to confirm it. Ah. After spitting the outer skin, he once again took a mouthful, his teeth penetrating through the entire outer skin, exposing the strawberry-sized core of the red fruit. Zhanxian used his tongue to taste the flavor of that core. A sweet flavor roused his spirit. Sure enough, after the flavor was determined, Zhanxian immediately took out the core of the fruit and started chewing, almost swallowing it directly into his stomach. In his previous life, how could Zhanxian be willing to spit out that thick peel? Despite its bad taste, that peel was also an important ingredient in concocting pills of immortality, even though the capability of the core of the fruit was most significant. The bitter peel, however, still had 1/10 of the efficacy and 3/10 of the spirit power of the fruit. Even that one superior master who concocts pill of immortality at the time of refining foundation pills would also be unwilling to peel out the core. Even though it was bitter, he would still demand to use it to the fullest. Yet facing the hundred of thousands of profound yang fruits, Zhanxian could eventually experience the taste of an unmixed core of the profound yang fruit. Sweet juice, as well as a smooth taste, really this is a rare delicacy, ah. Even after eating one he still wanted more. Only now did Zhanxian become aware that just to satisfy his appetite for good food, using this core was a bit too much. Afterwards, Zhanxian immediately began to refine that fruit's core, which contained great medicinal power within. The 5 yang phases method began to circulate at the same time, moving in 5 different directions, frantically trying to absorb the spirit power within the profound yang fruit. Due to the growth of thousands of profound yang fruits, the spirit power in the medicine garden was abundant. Just then, out of the fiery gold pellet, an unending stream of herb spirit power started rushing out. Due to 5 yang phases method, spirit power from 5 directions forcefully entered Yang Chen's channel simultaneously, following the way of 5 yang phases method, and began to circulate incessantly. These 5 attributes frequently provoked one another. The spirit power slowly began to strengthen. Yang Chen immediately sensed the feeling of spirit power permeating his channels increase substantially. The large amount of spirit power began to circulate in Yang Chen's channels, frantically rushing towards numerous bones in his 4 limbs. Afterwards, all channels in Yang Chen's whole body were filled entirely with vigorous spirit power. However, that one profound yang fruit's medicinal ability hadn't completely spread out and was still continuously releasing spirit power. Taking a foundation pill is same as having a great success in refining Kai, which can be used later to attack the foundation stage bottleneck. It contains sufficient spirit power to support him in reaching the foundation stage a few times over, successfully. At present, Yang Chen had only cultivated to the first Kai layer. Thus, due to the core, the spirit power quickly rose to the limits of the first Kai layer. If he was in his previous life, Yang Chen could use this portion of formidable spirit power to attack the second Kai layer directly, but at the moment, Yang Chen was only cultivating the 5 yang phase 5 types of the 5 yang phases method. As such, the 5 yin phases hadn't been cultivated at this time, so he inadvertently allowed his yin and yang to become unbalanced. Impatiently sitting in the room, Yang Chen was beginning to become aware of his misfortune regarding the 5 attributes. The yang 5 phases restricting each other slowly began consuming more and more spirit power. 5 attributes overcoming each other and dividing completely is wishful thinking. The 5 types of different attribute spirit power coming in contact with each other had become his own bane. Spirit power began to surge up and grind so as to reverse the motion of yang 5 phases method, slowly being consumed. In this way, even that one profound yang fruit's medicine power had still cost Yang Chen half a day of time, slowly being used up so that almost nothing was left. Later Yang Chen unexpectedly reversed 5 phases method, consuming his spirit power frantically. At the last stage, however, all the 5 phases possessed their own portion of spirit energy which couldn't be removed. Yang Chen specifically paid attention to this remaining tiny portion of spirit energy and was pleasantly surprised to discover that this was the pure essence of the 5 portions. The spirit energy of the 5 phases, when refined into spirit power of the 5 phases which are able to pass each other mutually, became more condensed with pure essence. This spirit power, when compared to the past, had 2 or 3 times higher quality. The 5 great yin and yang phases, 5 phases trying to engender each other, raising spirit power rather than consuming it. But, regardless of cultivation level, all had huge benefits. This was something Yang Chen had recently discovered. Yang Chen also found a reverse cultivation skill that could even hide his cultivation. This was another huge benefit for him. As a result, his plan to join his teacher's sect again was completely within his grasp. When one profound yang fruit's core was exhausted, Yang Chen also stopped his cultivation. Furthermore, the channels in his body were all filled. His whole body had a high temperature, but it seemed as if he was taking a comfortable bath in a sauna. The fragrant smell was coming from his mouth. The profound yang fruit's core still left an aftertaste in Yang Chen's mind. This one core had increased his cultivation. Even lightly drawing air, the sweet fragrance entered his mouth, piercing through to his abdomen. Unable to contain his emotions, he continued to linger on enjoying such a rare delicacy, feeling as if he had become tipsy due to wine. It seems this fruit tastes delicious after peeling. Ah! Yang Chen, who gazed towards the profound yang fruit, couldn't help but say this loudly a countless number of times, pausing only to sigh. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 14 Executioners also desire immortality. While passing through the fields of profound yang fruit, Yang Chen came across another scene. This time no longer were there vast stretches of medicines, but rather just a few medicines, scattered on the side of a mountainous region. This medicinal farm in the center had truly different topological and weather conditions for different drugs. In short, it was most suited for the growth of drug ingredients. These herbs, although they were few in number, just by a glance, Yang Chen could determine that there were, at least, 3 6-leaves ginseng. Although they only revealed the top of their surface so that only 6 leaves and the roots underneath were visible, Yang Chen, using his years of experience, could swiftly determine that the ginseng beneath that had, at least, surpassed 2,000 years of age. At the time when these 3 ginsengs were transplanted into this medicine garden, they were already 1,000-year ginsengs. After passing 1,000 years more in the medicine garden, these ginsengs already had an almost perfect essence. The step into the ranks of the gold pellet sect at foundation stage is a great accomplishment, refining the 1,000-year ginseng into a nature oil. Such an opportunity could increase his chances by at least 3 times. These 3 ginsengs were enough for Yang Chen to make 3 nature pills. At that time, whether it is the teachers or the seniors who desire to break through, all could be used to increase his chances. There still were 4 fleeceflower roots, as well as 7 vital, large pieces of lingxi in the remaining piece of land. Not to speak of any other herbs, just these ginseng, rootweed and lingxi were already priceless. With a single look at these 4,000-year matured fleeceflower roots, Yang Chen immediately recalled Zhanxian Pill's prescription which he obtained from Chinga back then. The main drug of which was definitely this fleeceflower root. Its maturity in the present year had already well exceeded the requirements, and the medicinal effect was also quite good. Presumably, if only Yang Chen was able to get the Zhanxian Pill, he could also cultivate frantically like those women. Not to mention the lingxi, even though this drug ingredient is quite common, a lingxi surpassing 2,000 years is still quite rare. In a situation where someone is seriously injured, as long as he has a lingxi Jayakuro pill, even if he is an Yuning stage expert, all of his internal and external injuries can be treated with an almost miraculous recovery resembling as if raising someone from dead. In another direction, expanding widely in a large area are the wood decay fungus, 7-spirit resin, pseudoginseng, tall gastrodia and female ginseng. Unlike the profound yang fruit fields, this area had large discrepancies. Although they were only ordinary drug ingredients, all of them were matured for 1,000 years. Hence, when any of these herbs will be refined to make pills, their medicinal effects would all be increased by at least several times. Any drug which Yang Chen could think of, he was able to find almost all of them here. 1,000 years of time, together with the spirit power nourishment, can change even the most ordinary plantago into the most outstanding items. Yang Chen was stupefied at the sight of such a huge accumulation of wealth. No wonder the sect that discovered this medicine garden in his previous life was able to stand out. Having so many drug ingredients which can be refined to so many high-level pills would help the cultivation a large number of experts. Even Yang Chen didn't need to do anything, just by selling these drug ingredients in an auction house, he could become a very rich and influential person. Unfortunately for Yang Chen, who had cultivated to the Kai layer, even if he desired to concoct pills of immortality, it was still not possible. The spirit power even at foundation level is incapable of fulfilling the requirements for concocting pills of immortality, as it is consumed too quickly. At least, until he reached 5th Kai layer, he would not be capable of refining most of the simple medicine pills. Facing towards the land filled with herbs, the only thing Yang Chen could do was to eat them like the profound yang fruit and to make of use of his opposite 5 phases of yin-yang, together with condensing his own spirit power. At that moment, Yang Chen resolved to keep the medicine garden in his hands, admiring its messed up conditions. So many precious natural resources, if really discovered by other people, Yang Chen estimated they would lose their minds. Fortunately, the control over the medicine garden's clean bottle was already in Yang Chen's hand. He did not need to be so anxious anymore. With his heart set, Yang Chen immediately disappeared through the center of the medicine garden, that clean bottle again appearing in his hands. Just as he was about to set out, his heart was suddenly moved and he raised his hand towards the sky to receive the palace. The large palace began to shrink rapidly, changing into a small lid, able to cover the clean bottle seamlessly, with the lid's form resembling that of a circular dome. The 49 swords constituting the sword spell incessantly moved on the lid, like tails of 49 agile fishes. The spell able to kill Yuning stage experts made Yang Chen drool with desire when just looking at it. Unfortunately, his cultivation was too low for this. Let alone the sword spell, even if he was given a flying sword, he could still not use it, so affected by his heart's greed, he could only eye it. Luckily all of this was already collected by Yang Chen, though at present he could only look at it, but not use it, yet this still made Yang Chen abnormally happy. The clean bottle successfully combined with its lid, forming a pair, as if of heaven and earth, combining the medicine garden together with its defensive sword spell, henceforth looking as if the Yang Mountain medicine garden had become his own. After storing the bottle with its lid, Yang Chen's silhouette immediately appeared on top of the Yang Mountain. That camouflaged large tree had already disappeared and Yang Chen was standing still in its original place, holding that clean bottle with its lid in his hands. Having been immersed in the vast extent of the medicine garden, he would find it impossible to let go, and even now Yang Chen did not dare to believe this large amount of riches together with those natural resources are within his hand. If he had these in his previous life, where even owning a vermilion fruit could be an offense for a low social standing person, he would be attracting series of extreme misfortunes. Thinking of this, a picture of his teacher's beautiful eyes facing death's door flashed in Yang Chen's mind again. Immediately afterwards, the scene of his teacher handing him his bright sword once again emerged, making Yang Chen feel incredibly warm. Bowing his head to look at the clean bottle with its lid in his hand, Yang Chen sensed a kind of feeling coming from the top of the clean bottle, finally confirming for himself that he owned this wealth, which could make even the most unyielding man in this world feel tempted. Calmly storing the clean bottle and its lid in his achievements ring, Yang Chen finally felt relaxed in his heart. In mortal kingdoms, it was still not possible for someone to easily steal Yang Chen's achievement ring and walk away, even if it was possible for experts to open others' Qianqin pouches, but it was impossible for them to see through objects from the heavens. These treasures have already changed their family name to Yang. Ed. Note. Changing family name can mean changing ownership in China. Thinking of something in his heart, Yang Chen did some actions, and a large pile of dried up bones of animals suddenly appeared on the ground next to him. The densely packed bones almost filled the entire mountain forest. As for being discovered by someone, Yang Chen did not care. Calculating the time, the day when the sect of his master from his previous life will take disciple was approaching. If he started from here, following this route, he even had the time to return home once, to pay a visit to his parents, and afterwards go to the Pure Yang Palace to formally become an apprentice. After taking a moment to decide, Yang Chen began to set off. This was a new road of cultivation, totally different from his previous life. The only identical thing was that Yang Chen could pay his respect to the same master. "Master, you just wait, I am coming." In the recent days, the Yang family manor had been decorated with lanterns and colored banners and was a festive sight to behold. Be it the Yang family's lord or be it the village's farmers and tenants, everyone had a cheerful look on their face. The young master of the Yang family, who had been away from home for 6 months, had returned 2 days ago to visit the main hall. The Yang family's lord and madam were so happy that they were jumping from joy. In happiness, they bestowed a reward on each and every tenant family. The entire manor had the feel of a great celebration. Naturally, Yang Chen was unwilling to tell his father and mother about his personal matters, but he still left, at least, 50 kinds of talismans for them. All these talismans were upgraded by Yang Chen using the universal treasure-raising arts. These talismans could be used for his father's and mother's safety. When torn apart, they would immediately attack. Certainly, Yang Chen did not forget to warn them repeatedly that in the following period of 2 years, there would be a rebellion in the country. He had already placed bewildering talismans on more than 10 paths coming through the surroundings of the mountainous region. So long as an outsider intruded this area, he would immediately get confused and become disoriented due to the constant illusions and unconsciously leave the path to the manor. At least during this confusion, it is unlikely that anyone would be able to disturb the peaceful life here. Although Yang Chen's bewildering talismans were quite low-leveled, after constantly using the universal treasure-raising secrets, their efficacy had a large increase. The leaking of spirit power it would be quite unlikely that even he could discover this flourishing manor. Anyway, it could be assumed that for this kind of expert it would be below him to dispose of ordinary people. Thus, the Yang family would naturally be safe. In order to take care of his father's and mother's health, Yang Chen thought of the best means. This time he is incapable of refining any medicinal pills, but instead he could use the body refining pill given to him by Shy Fairy. Body pills, as the name implies, apart from stimulating people's spirit roots, can hammer one's body into shape. A rare product for ordinary people indeed. Yang Chen divided the body pill into 2 for the benefit of his parents. For them to eat the body pill at this age, it was already impossible to arouse their spirit roots, but nevertheless Yang Chen's parents were already quite robust due to being nursed by various drugs. Yang Chen carefully selected a batch of profound yang fruit's leaves and figured out a tea recipe to boil it and set it aside as an ordinary tea to be used by his parents. Profound yang fruit's leaves contain a small amount of spirit power, suited for the slow absorption by ordinary people. Regularly drinking this kind of tea would increase the longevity of his parents, as well as save them from various illnesses. After settling down his father and mother, Yang Chen once again departed from his home. After 2 months, Yang Chen appeared at the gate of the Pure Yang Palace, on Miking Mountain. As he trod the Miking Mountain on foot, familiar sceneries entered Yang Chen's eyes, one by one. Along with these familiar scenes, cheerful memories from his previous life also appeared in his mind. There were still many days of time left for the Pure Yang Palace to recruit disciples, but the small town below the mountain was already fully packed with the people who had come to try their luck. Originally the population of this small town was only several hundred, but due to the sudden inflow of 2,000 youngsters, together with their family members, all accommodations were jam-packed. Every year the town would have these kind of circumstances, so the people of the small town were not surprised by it anymore and even treated this time as a way to make some extra income. All houses had guest rooms to rent. As for safety, they didn't have to care about it, with the Puryang Palace to receive disciples in near future who would dare to infuriate the immortal teachers of the Puryang Palace by flouting its laws. For hastening his journey so he could rest for the remaining days, apart from the 3 purity secrets, he didn't practice any other cultivation methods. Due to his misfortune with the 5 phases arts, the spirit power in his body had already been suppressed to very low, while his energy had become extremely pure. In this case, even if it was an external disciple conducting the ordinary disciples' tests, he was unlikely to discover any spirit power on Yang Chen's body. Moreover, Yang Chen was unlikely to meet the chief instructor. Amidst everyone's expectations, the main gate of the Miking Mountain's lower monastery finally opened. Rows of 10 uniformly dressed disciples appeared one after another. Inside of the monastery, a very small, square-shaped region appeared. A simple entrance test was being held in this square-shaped region. Within a short moment, 3 males and 3 females, a total of 6 youngsters, walked away from the gate and divided themselves into 2 rows on both each side and began to wait for youngsters to enter the small region in line to test their spirit root and decide whether to include them as outer monastery disciples. Yang Chen was in the middle of the line, leisurely waiting for the people ahead of him to enter the monastery. Compared to the surrounding youngsters, Yang Chen was quite calm and not particularly anxious about anything. One by one, youngsters proceeded to test their spirit root. If someone was suitable, his name was immediately announced to become an outer disciple of the Puryang Palace. If he didn't have the suitable spirit root, then he had to walk through the other side to leave. 10 outer disciples were taking care of the 2,000 youngsters in perfect order, without even the slightest confusion. At last, it was Yang Chen's turn. Yang Chen took a deep breath, suddenly feeling a little nervous. Then immediately he shook his head. He had already experienced the 3 disasters and 9 tribulations. Feeling anxious for a small spirit root test, he would truly lose all face. Suppressing his nervousness, Yang Chen calmly entered the small region. Under the arrangements of the inner disciples, both hands should be pressed on the array to test the spirit root. After several breaths, the array began to reveal a blazing color and at the same time a number appeared. After looking at the array for a moment, the disciple loudly said, "Higher spirit root, 71. Suddenly several people started commenting. 71, fire spirit root, pretty good aptitude. Again, someone passed. What is your name? Within those discussions, a familiar senior who had looked after Yang Chen in his previous life loudly asked. Yang Chen. Yang Chen hastily exclaimed his name so that the experienced senior brother could make out the 2 words. Yang Chen. That familiar senior read Yang Chen's name and suddenly his complexion became somewhat strange. He lowered his body a little and produced a piece of talisman jade in his hands. After sweeping it with his soul power, he looked at it one more time and suddenly his face showed surprise. He asked. Are you an executioner? Yang Chen stared blankly. When had he become so famous that even the lower generations of the Puryang Palace knew of him being an executioner? Despite being amazed, Yang Chen nodded. I am. Yang Chen replied. As this was not a shameful identity, Yang Chen had not even thought of denying it. In the previous few months, have you killed over 1,000? The senior brother again asked in a breath. These words caused other disciples to cry out in surprise. I did. Since the other party already knew that he was an executioner, they should also know what he had done as an executioner. Yang Chen nevertheless nodded admittingly. Only, in his heart, he was becoming more doubtful. Who was so against him? Could it be the sect teacher of the guy who tried to get rid of him at the Yang Mountain? You, an executioner who kills, regardless of any concerns, actually dares to speak lies in order to cultivate. Are you not afraid of the heavens? Suddenly, an exceptionally rude voice came loudly from another side of the room. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 15. First temper yourself. An executioner who kills will receive the wrath of the heavens. Yang Chen replied, looking at the person who would speak these kinds of words while feeling intensely irritated. Yang Chen recognized him, his name was Sun Haijing. He was a disciple of the Puryang Palace, belonging to the Luminous Moon Hall. In his previous life, this Luminous Moon Hall and the Fierce Yang Hall to which Yang Chen belonged were secretly clashing with one another. Yang Chen's master was the head of the Fierce Yang Hall. Yang Chen had a fire-attributed spirit root. If he joined the Puryang Palace, if not for some strange accident, he would surely enter the Fierce Yang Hall. Sun Haijing suddenly appearing and blaming him without any cause would then again be only natural. But Yang Chen was baffled. When did he become so well known? Even in the Puryang Palace, which could only be considered a third-rate sect in the field of cultivation, someone unexpectedly knew his great name and status. Murder is murder, don't tell me it is different based on status. Sun Haijing looked at Yang Chen's guiltless face and loudly snorted. What's more, you have killed so many, even the Puryang Palace won't accept this kind of a monster. I remember that in the Puryang Palace, there is a rule that disciples of the same sect cannot injure each other or else they will be severely punished. Yang Chen confronted Sun Haijing indifferently. He smilingly said. It seems that law enforcement hall's disciples always interfere in the matters of other disciples of same sect, according to sect's law, shouldn't they be severely punished? Ridiculous. Sun Haijing angrily said. Law enforcement hall's disciples only follow the sect's orders to punish the disciples, how can that be considered as injuring each other? Your Anzu Tianer barely finishing the sentence, Sun Haijing suddenly became aware of the paradox within his words. Executioner speaking these 5 syllables his voice became very low, up to the point where one couldn't even hear it. I am an executioner, naturally I am extremely evil, it's nothing for me to find a person in the middle of the street and cut off his head, heinous, is it not, right? Yang Chen smiled for Sun Haijing to continue the argument, then beaming with smiles rhetorically asked him. Senior disciple, do you know what authorities are for? Furthermore, what is the use of the execution ground? An executioner was a person selected by the imperial court to carry out the death penalty. Now even if the country declined due to it, executions would still be carried out on the behalf of authorities. Even the law enforcement hall of the Puryang Palace was unlikely to have such a fair executioner. Sun Haijing wanted to make life difficult for Yang Chen, he was simply asking for trouble. You have killed too many, in the end you are still disrupting the peace of heaven. Sun Haijing did not want to talk about this with Yang Chen anymore. Truth be told, arguing again was useless, he could only find another way. For someone who has killed, there are too many other aspects which could be looked into. For the disciples who have too many sins, the disciples of the law enforcement hall will strive hard to carry out their responsibilities. Could it be that injuring disciples of the same sect is also disrupting the peace of heaven? Yang Chen still responded as before, using the disciples of law enforcement hall. Even if Sun Haijing was a bull with the support of a mountain, he could still not say even a word against law enforcement hall's disciples, let alone reject their methods or slander their duties. Moreover, Yang Chen had also firmly stuck to the point that his executioner duties were equivalent to the duties of the law enforcement hall's disciples. Whether or not disciples have wronged is all in the hands of the sect leader and the elders of the law enforcement hall. Again, it is not as soon as Sun Haijing said these words, he immediately discovered his mistakes again, so he shut his mouth so as to not speak any more wrong words. Whether or not a prisoner is beheaded is due to rulings of authorities. Could it be senior disciple believes that a small executioner like me is in charge? Yang Chen looked at Sun Haijing with a ridiculing expression, appearing to be jeering at his ignorance. This time, Sun Haijing's words were aimed at the palace master and the elder of the law enforcement hall, who had made him experience embarrassment. Not waiting for him to speak, Yang Chen loudly said. As long as someone excels in killing, he cannot join or discuss immortal cultivation. I do not know if senior disciple excels in killing, but I do know that the headmaster of Puryang Palace excels in it. Could it be that senior disciple thinks that the sect master is also not fit to join? This slandering caused huge changes, commenting on the sect leader's merits and demerits, Sun Haijing was so stunned, he couldn't even think. Disrespecting the sect master, Puryang Palace, doesn't require this kind of disciple. Sun Haijing could finally cling onto one argument, so he hurriedly declared it loudly. Other people hadn't been able to speak. Sun Haijing was discarding everyone else present here. Moreover, it seemed like he wasn't even leaving any room for discussion. At the side, the examiner for the spirit root test of the disciples was also somewhat dissatisfied, creasing his brows he loudly spoke. Sun Haijing, receiving him or not receiving him, is it solely for you to decide? Moreover, we haven't heard any disrespect for the sect leader in his words. Sun Haijing did not dare to speak to his senior rudely, only turned to the side and explained to his senior with a smile. Senior brother, I am only afraid that he has degenerated to the devil's path and it would stain my Puryang Palace's reputation, that's all. Entering the devil's path is also possible just by cultivating. Could it be that junior son wants me to chase out all the sect graduates? Said the senior disciple, while feeling very discontented at Sun Haijing's manners. So many seniors were sitting there yet nobody had said anything, but Sun Haijing kept on talking and moreover interfered with the matters of others, clearly not putting any of the people present here in his eyes, so he immediately felt bitter. This, senior, has he not killed too many? Sun Haijing said sluggishly. He awkwardly explained with a smile. I was just afraid of any accidents. Junior son, since you also cultivate, why do you care about a common person so much? That senior loudly sneered and, looking at Sun Haijing suddenly asked. This common person, how do you know he is an executioner? Don't tell me your spirit awareness is stronger than these several strong-minded seniors present here and is able to discover what they haven't been able to see. Ah. Sun Haijing became distracted again, apparently, this time if the explanation was unclear, he would have completely offended these many seniors here. Without anything to say he could only lower his voice and with a smile say. This news is spread by Greatest Heaven Sect's Uncle Master Li, demanding that we better not receive this executioner. Apparently in the eyes of senior disciple Sun, whether the Pure Yang Palace will receive a disciple or not is actually up to Greatest Heaven Sect's Uncle Master Li to decide. Seeing Sun Haijing hesitate, Yang Chen already stated loudly with a gentle smile. Please allow me, dare I ask, this Li's senior brother, is he Pure Yang Palace's sect leader? Or is he the older generation's cultivating elder? His one word can make the Pure Yang Palace follow it, as if it is an imperial edict. This sentence of Yang Chen directly hit Sun Haijing's soft spot. Even in his previous life Yang Chen had been in disagreement with Yang Zai from the start, and in the Pure Yang Palace, many were dissatisfied with the bossy attitude of the Greatest Heaven Sect. This kind of sentence directly instigated all disciples to stand up against the resentful attitude of Greatest Heaven Sect. Pure Yang Chen. The disciple who just a moment ago refuted Sun Haijing, looked over to Yang Chen. Since you have a fire-attributed spirit root, my Pure Yang Palace will immediately accept you as a disciple. Wait a moment. As Yang Chen was delighted in his heart, a voice echoed loudly. The voice echoed loudly, and everyone present turned towards the source of the voice. Yang Chen smiled at this familiar voice, however because it was from too long ago, he had already forgotten who it was. Anyone who would dare to stop him this time from joining Pure Yang Palace to pay respect to his master was Yang Chen's enemy, even if it was the emperor himself, he would not care in the slightest. Though the person himself had not arrived his voice was already heard. The crowd felt that each and every person heard that sound. It was very clear and distinct, but no one felt that it was ear-piercing. Besides Yang Chen, others felt as if the speaker was an intimate friend, giving off a favorable impression without saying anything. The person soon showed himself. No one was able to discover where he came from, as if he had been standing there all along, or like he had stepped on a magical cloud and slowly descended to the ground. Almost all of the Pure Yang Palace disciples present at the scene bowed and saluted to him as Uncle Master. Only Sun Haijing addressed him as Master. Sun Haijing said this loudly, but it allowed Yang Chen to recall the identity of this person. This person was Luminous Moon Hall's Deacon Chu Heng. At present he had already cultivated to the foundation stage, an inner disciple. You originally are an executioner without any regard to murder. Chu Heng looked at Yang Chen and suddenly asked him. I am. Yang Chen hadn't concealed anything indispensable, so he nodded in agreement. Although what Sun Haijing said is wrong, he only thought of the sect, so you should not slander him in this way. As soon as Chu Heng appeared on the stage, his imposing manner already dominated all of the disciples. Who else would dare to make a sound while he was speaking? Every year the people responsible for recruiting new disciples were all third Kai layer or higher outer disciples. To become inner disciples, they had to cultivate to the foundation stage. Among all of the disciples present at the scene, Chu Heng had the highest seniority, so nobody would dare to refute his words. Yang Chen originally wanted to say something, but still forced himself to endure, waiting for this Chu Heng to demand something first. If this Chu Heng would dare to obstruct him from joining Pure Yang Palace, then Yang Chen would also not care about offending him, who originally did not even consider Fierce Yang Hall as same sect. After killing too many people, many cultivators will have a heart's devil. Just because your body possesses a spirit root, my Pure Yang Palace will still receive you as a preparatory disciple. As soon as Chu Heng started to talk, he immediately approved Yang Chen to join Pure Yang Palace as a disciple. Yang Chen relaxed in his heart, no longer saying anything, he only cared about easily joining Pure Yang Palace, whether or not others were chosen, he hardly cared. Chu Heng said this to get Sun Haijing out of his predicament, reckoning that the situation of Sun Haijing was anything but reassuring, as Sun Haijing had to secretly inform his master. Only because Yang Chen was allowed to join, Yang Chen deliberately didn't make things difficult for Sun Haijing. To temper your mental state and to eliminate devil intentions, also to ease your evil tendencies to kill, and to join my Pure Yang Palace, within 10 years, you will act as a servant and will not cultivate any techniques. Chu Heng had once again given an excuse, but it seemed like a correct approach. To drag back Yang Chen's cultivation for 10 years for no reason, it was nothing less than being vicious. Many disciples burst into commotion, a servant for 10 years, isn't he just making fun of him? This Chu Heng seemed fair, but was actually siding with Sun Haijing. Only, the outer disciples could do nothing against this inner disciple, a dispute would only annoy him, and he cleverly had already sent a note his master to settle the dispute for him. Servant for 10 years. Yang Chen loudly sneered and was just about to refute when Chu Heng once again spoke. This is for your own good, you don't understand the goodwill of people. You have killed so many just like that. If your evil tendencies repeat during cultivation and they affect your mind, the consequences would be too horrible. As long as you concentrate on restraining your nature, diligently accumulate virtues and temper yourself, then you have nothing to be anxious about when cultivating. That senior disciple Sun Hai, is very quick to act in accordance with commands of other sects, I believe, should he spend a few years to temper his nature? Yang Chen asked sarcastically while smiling. He did not act in accordance to the greatest sky sect's instructions, this matter you should roughly understand. While answering Yang Chen's question, Chu Heng didn't show the least bit of anger, as if not to lower himself to Yang Chen's level. However, he became aware that Yang Chen's words were those which the outer disciples in charge of recruitment test were desirous of asking, which could not be avoided. Thus, facing them to give an explanation of some sort, he took the opportunity to point towards Yang Chen's words. Shy Fairy has shown her appreciation for you by giving you a body refining pill, that is your enormous luck. As soon as Chu Heng opened his mouth to talk, the disciples present on the scene cried out in surprise, making sounds that indicated that nothing more needed to be said. Shy Fairy, the idol of most young cultivators, this did not seem to surprise Yang Chen. Unexpectedly to get the appreciation of Shy Fairy of the Green Jade Island of Immortals is enough to make him enviable. With this sentence of Chu Heng, Yang Chen immediately became aware of how he became so well known. Presumably Shy Zhanxian, who was not interested in anything except herself, appeared that day with people who were all admirers of Shy Zhanxian. The favor shown by Shy Zhanxian to Yang Chen was not liked by many people. Since Yang Chen obtained the body refining pill, it was his good luck to have a spirit root, and these young accomplished cultivators did not wish to appear in front of other male pursuers of Shy Fairy in the future, so sending information about Yang Chen to each faction was a matter of course. This Sun Hai Jing was supposedly commanded, at that time, by a disciple of greatest sky sect was present there, so he was deliberately trying to make things difficult, but was refuted by Yang Chen so strongly that he was left dumbstruck and could only call out Chu Heng. Only, if you feel that Shy Fairy will take care of you and that cultivation will be a smooth road, then you are gravely mistaken. Chu Heng, looking at Yang Chen, stated virtuously. I arranged this sort of plan just to make you understand that cultivation is not easy. You need great perseverance and strong willpower with talent to succeed. In case you cannot endure these 10 years, then don't blame me for being ruthless. With my Pure Yang Palace's large influence, you will have no opportunity to seek refuge with other factions. After this remark, all of the present disciples quieted down. After all, Yang Chen himself was an executioner and also really killed without any regard, adding to that the just mentioned reasons, perhaps Yang Chen has become self-satisfied due to appreciation by Shy Fairy, so he should temper himself in order to get strong willpower. Although Yang Chen had spirit root, he was not anyone talented, for one person with average talent who had yet to be an outer disciple, who would offend a foundation stage inner disciple. I will not give you the opportunity to blame. At that time, to embarrass Yang Chen, Chu Heng again started talking. Within these 10 years, if you feel like you are able to challenge my unworthy disciple Sun Hai Jing, you can challenge him. If you are able to defeat him, I will excuse you for the remaining period as a slave and you can directly cultivate, how about it? If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 16 Promises Must Be Kept. Rather than saying that this offer was for the benefit of Yang Chen so that he could start cultivating earlier, it would be better to say, although reaching the third Kai layer was not any frightening talent to be envied, for dealing with an ordinary person this was more than enough. For 10 years, Yang Chen would not be able to cultivate and Sun Hai Jing would continue to progress each day, the disparity would only increase more and more with time. As Yang Chen would keep postponing the time to challenge Sun Hai Jing, the chance to defeat him would become smaller and smaller. And in case Yang Chen would not dare to challenge him, Sun Hai Jing would greatly exploit Yang Chen's identity as a servant by finding someone else to keep insulting Yang Chen until he couldn't endure it anymore and leave. 10 years of time was enough for Sun Hai Jing to do many things. And since these were the instructions from Chu Heng, he could freely overdo it. In short, everything could be excused with the justification that it was to temper Yang Chen's mind and others could not refute it. Then, even if Yang Chen didn't leave, the order given by the greatest sky sect's uncle Master Li would still be fulfilled by not letting Yang Chen cultivate, and it would furthermore be impossible for him to meet with Shy Fairy in the future. In the case that Yang Chen would lag behind in cultivation, then after 10 years his cultivation would require dangerous methods to progress. Added to that kind of insult, his nature would clearly become very weak, so there would naturally be no need to worry about him. This was a setup which could not be easily blocked or investigated, and it could easily be entrusted to someone else so that they may go through with it and easily damage Yang Chen. Only, by then, who would get Yang Chen out of his predicament? As Chu Heng had finished talking, without waiting for Yang Chen to reply, he turned towards other direction. Suddenly his voice could be heard. Senior brother Du, how do you think of this younger disciple's plans? Everyone turned their gaze in the same direction as Chu Heng. Over there, a lone shadow suddenly appeared and the outer disciples responsible for recruitment all bowed respectfully and saluted. These disciples pay their respects to Uncle Master Du. Yang Chen recognized this senior Du, his name was Du Ming Qian and he was a disciple of the law enforcement hall. His conduct was usually upright, but he rarely listened to anyone. Usually there would not be a disciple of the law enforcement hall here today, but unexpectedly he had come, it seems some disciple had informed him of the events here. The argument which was equating an executioner with a disciple of the law enforcement hall had piqued his interest. Finally, Du Qian nodded faintly in response to the salute by those disciples. Immediately, his gaze fell onto Yang Chen's body and then slightly turned to the other side in Chu Heng's direction and loudly snorted. My Pure Yang Palace has no such rules, is this illusion your own trick? My Pure Yang Palace had no such rules before, only, my Pure Yang Palace has also not received any executioner before, only ordinary people. He has even murdered over 1,000 people. Moreover, if he thinks that he has some kind of relation with Shy Fairy, he will become arrogant and that is not good for his cultivation. Thus, this very minor self-endurance training should also be good for him. Du Heng gently smiled, not minding senior brother Du's manner. Even in the presence of Shy Fairy, I also would lay out such arrangements, perhaps Shy Fairy herself would also not say anything. Even if it's important for him to temper himself, it is also up to his master to set the arrangements. I am afraid, younger disciple Chu, that this is kind of inappropriate. Du Qian wrinkled his brows, nevertheless he could not do anything about Chu Heng's method and could only try to find some loopholes to deal with him. This disciple has just been recruited, he had just barely joined Pure Yang Palace and is still yet to formally become an apprentice, naturally it is not that inappropriate. Du Heng smiled, having easily dismissed Du Qian's concern and then stopped to return. Turning towards Yang Chen he asked again. Yang Chen, are you willing? If I don't want to, what other way is there? Yang Chen still hadn't replied directly and instead asked a question. If you don't want to, it proves that you have a nature of running away and with my Pure Yang Palace's large influence, although you have no real chance you can still try to go to another place to get a better chance. Du Heng had already said this sentence once, but he was not tired of saying it again. In case this disciple challenges senior son, no matter the result, it is probably asking for punishment by committing the offense of injuring a disciple of same sect. Yang Chen thought and asked again. Du Heng smiled and didn't reply, but rather turned towards Du Qian and said. Senior brother Du is from the law enforcement hall, surely you will believe his words. Du Qian was a disciple of the law enforcement hall, in this respect he naturally had the qualifications to speak. Muttering to himself, even if he could not do anything about Chu Heng's actions, he still couldn't conceal his good intentions and loudly said. Since there is a prior engagement, naturally it will not count as disciples of the same sect injuring each other. When I challenge him he cannot ask for a helper. Yang Chen laughingly asked again. Naturally he can't, since a challenge is a private matter between two individuals, even if someone loses, he will have to accept his loss, fair and square. Du Heng, who seemed very proud of himself for coming up with this move, answered Yang Chen's question very patiently. Finally, if he is injured, then what? Yang Chen's complexion became seriously concentrated, as if to ask about and thoroughly understand all possibilities, and only then challenge him. That's very regretful, but only you can be blamed for not being skilled enough, not other people. Du Heng smiled again, his mood was absolutely cheerful, so he replied happily. You can be at ease, when disciples of the same sect compare notes, they can seriously injure each other, but not take one's life. You can ask senior brother Du about that, as well. Du Qian couldn't do anything now to support Yang Chen. He only nodded towards him and said. When you challenge him, notify me so that I can be present at the duel. At least, I will be able to save your life so there is nothing to be concerned about. Many thanks senior brother Du. Yang Chen could naturally differentiate between good and bad. After expressing his thanks to Du Qian, he turned towards Chu Heng and asked again. Becoming a servant for 10 years, beginning from now, in these 10 years I can challenge elder brother Sun Haijing at any time, and if I win, I can start to cultivate formally, is that right, Uncle Master Chu? While speaking, Yang Chen already used elder brother Sun to address Sun Haijing, as well as calling Chu Heng and Du Qian as Uncle Master. What Yang Chen had said just now was the same as what Chu Heng had spoken just a moment ago, so he naturally didn't say anything and just nodded in agreement. When I challenge senior son, this a challenge between us and others cannot interfere, nor can any one of us be replaced with another person. If someone receives injury, it's one's own fault for not being skilled enough, moreover it's quite possible to suffer a serious injury, but nobody can be killed. Uncle Master Chu Heng, is that correct? Yang Chen once repeated what Chu Heng had recently said to ask thoroughly. Chu Heng once again nodded. In that case, I agree to Uncle Master Chu's punishment. Yang Chen saluted towards Chu Heng and Du Qian and immediately afterwards walked towards Sun Haijing. Elder brother son, I am Junior Yang Chen, I challenge you. Please advise me. Who could have anticipated that Yang Chen would immediately go to Sun Haijing to issue a challenge? After hearing what Yang Chen said, almost all people there stared at him, wide-eyed and with their mouths hanging open. If an ordinary person who challenges a cultivator of the third Kai layer is not mad, then he has to be a complete fool. Yang Chen appeared quite ordinary and he was neither mad nor foolish, so who could have thought that he would do something like this? Du Heng and Du Qian on the contrary, secretly nodded as Yang Chen had raised the challenge immediately. Even though it seemed as if Yang Chen's challenge was an impossible affair, this time he actually had the largest advantage. If it had been at a later time in future, Sun Haijing would have progressed incessantly and Yang Chen who could not cultivate would not make any progress, so his chances of victory would grow smaller and smaller. Only, despite nodding, Chu Heng thought that Yang Chen's challenge was overestimating his capabilities and did not care about it. Meeting Sun Haijing's gaze, he gave a slight nod to handle the affair and didn't say anything. Sun Haijing was inspired and felt that he had naturally nothing to be worried about. As for Yang Chen's challenge, his master had spoken very clearly just a moment ago. Yang Chen had still asked him again and again that this time Yang Chen could not be held responsible for any fractures or breaking of ribs, which could be considered as insulting his master by making him reply personally. All of a sudden with an excessive movement of his limbs, Sun Haijing even twisted his neck so that a cackling sound echoed in the area. Anyway, this was his limit. Controlling one's body's joints was already an easy thing to do. But this movement produced a sense of cruelness and at least several outer disciples who were there on the side turned their heads, not wanting to see any more. Everyone unhurriedly walked to one place of unused space. Sun Haijing fished out 1,000 Jin talisman from his Qianqin pouch and with one hand indicated for Yang Chen to start. Facing an ordinary person, Sun Haijing was 200% certain of his victory. As long as the 1,000 Jin talisman could make it difficult for Yang Chen to move forward, it would give him free rein to slaughter. Under these kinds of circumstances, if he was forced to use a large amount of magic power, then he would truly lose face. Also, if Sun Haijing were to lose to this man here, then Chu Heng would not have any face left. Yang Chen finally advanced, moving towards Sun Haijing's side. He had already decided which was the easiest way of dealing with Sun Haijing. In his previous life the Luminous Moon Hall strived for supremacy over the Fierce Yang Hall, and ultimately the people of the Luminous Moon Hall sold his master to the greatest sky sect, leading to his master's regrettable suicide. In this life the Luminous Moon Hall has once again colluded with the greatest sky sect to scheme against him, so he would not let Sun Haijing off easily. Be careful, senior brother, I am about to start. Yang Chen still warned him politely before he started. Sun Haijing in front of him laughed out loud, saying with disdain. Junior brother Yang Chen, bring it on. He was already ridiculing Yang Chen by calling him junior brother and it seemed he was determined to destroy Yang Chen as such. Yang Chen had solemn look on his face, a portion of cold Kai appeared from Yang Chen's body. The surrounding people looking from one side felt as if the atmosphere within the room had become many times colder. Feeling a large number of talented people can accumulate this kind of aura of death. Chu Heng, who simply didn't care about the killing intent emerging from Yang Chen's body, coldly snorted as if to get the attention of Du Qian, who was standing on the side, to make him clearly see what kind of person Yang Chen was in the end. Everyone who was watching only sensed a burst of intense killing intent which appeared somewhat frightening, but nothing more. But Sun Haijing, who was bearing the brunt, didn't feel the same way at all. In Sun Haijing's eyes, Yang Chen, who was standing in front of him, had suddenly turned into an ocean of blood from hell, wanting to engulf Sun Haijing. The monstrous killing intent invaded Sun Haijing's spirit awareness, making Sun Haijing tremble from dread and collapse, other than that he could not feel anything. Clenching the 1,000 Jin talisman in his hand he threw it, but it did not even show the slightest effect. The talisman looked like it was very likely to hit Yang Chen, but at the last moment his body merely leaned to one side and immediately dodged it. Afterwards he resolutely rushed up towards Sun Haijing, who was standing at the same place without any movement, and ruthlessly punched him. Bang, after storing power in the fist for a long time, it firmly hit Sun Haijing's nose. Even if Sun Haijing's cultivation had been more profound, under the circumstances where he could not use his magic power, his physical body would be incapable of resisting this kind of punch. Immediately his nose had started bleeding and darkness enveloped his vision. Even without waiting for Sun Haijing to respond to the pain, Yang Chen's other hand had already grabbed the 1,000 Jin talisman out of Sun Haijing's hand and then rapidly moved his body backwards. Then, leaning his shoulder to come near to Sun Haijing's elbow, he pushed it in the reverse direction, forcefully bending his joints. Hacha. An absolutely horrifying sound echoed through the room. That hand of Sun Haijing could be seen hanging softly by the side, incapable of moving it anymore, as a blood-curdling screech came out of Sun Haijing's mouth. The severe pain almost made him lose consciousness at this point. Yang Chen nevertheless did not let him go, and in an instant his body leaned towards the other side of Sun Haijing, with his other hand as his second target. However, Yang Chen had retracted his foot previously to pull him, thus Sun Haijing had already fallen to the ground involuntarily. When he fell, Sun Haijing had used his only free hand to support himself. But immediately he issued a painful howl, like that of a dying pig, again. And so Yang Chen took the opportunity to throw himself at Sun Haijing's body, tightly pressing him down with the top of his knee and hitting Sun Haijing's shoulder, pulling his only remaining hand and turning it over using force. Hacha. The arm that was supporting his body finally twisted in a weird way behind his back. To the bystanders it seemed as if the joint was bending baselessly. As both of his hands were twisted and broken by Yang Chen, Sun Haijing kept on screaming. Yang Chen's powerful fist kept on smashing incessantly against Sun Haijing's temples. Bang. Bang. Sounds like these unceasingly echoed, while Sun Haijing's screams became weaker and weaker, while the sound of struggling also became very feeble. Alarmed, Chu Heng was just about to intervene. But before he started moving, a hand appeared before his eyes and stopped him. Smilingly, Du Qian said. Junior brother Chu, in a duel between two people, other people cannot intervene. See, my disciple has already sustained injuries. Chu Heng, who was under great urgency, could not help but shout loudly, which made the disciples who were watching in the surroundings jump. To be injured, naturally, is his lack of skill, others cannot be blamed. It is unavoidable to suffer serious injuries, these are the words spoken by you, junior brother Chu. Du Qian's facial expression was, as before, full of smiles, his hand stopping Chu Heng from intervening, explaining on one side and using his spirit awareness on the other side to check the circumstances over there, he confidently stated. Be assured, junior brother Chu, I guarantee your disciple's life is not in danger. While he was speaking, Yang Chen had already stopped his punching. Blood was spread across Sun Haijing's face, who was already unconscious. Both of his arms were disabled, one was bent backwards from the elbow joint, while the other one was snapped at the root. The temples on his head were in complete mess, with some broken bones pressing down on them. But he was still alive and not dead yet. Calmly getting up, Yang Chen confronted Chu Heng, who was fuming with anger, and slightly smiled while saluting him. Uncle Master Chu, this disciple has already challenged and defeated senior brother Sun. Do Uncle Master Chu's previous words still hold? If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 17. Who would still dare instruct you? Chu Heng looked utterly flustered and exasperated, but since Law Enforcement Hall's Du Qian was present right now, even if Chu Heng had enormous guts, he still did not dare to hit Yang Chen in front of Du Qian. Thus, with a loud groan, he didn't pay any more attention to Yang Chen and directly rushed to his disciple to examine his injuries. After carefully inspecting him, Chu Heng couldn't help but take a step back and take a deep breath. He hurriedly reached out to his Qiankan pouch to find a few medicinal pills, squeezed them into Sun Haijing's mouth, and began to clear up the spots where Sun Haijing's bones were broken. Suddenly he looked towards Yang Chen maliciously. Everyone present, including Du Qian, didn't dare to believe this outcome. Yang Chen, an ordinary person, had unexpectedly won when facing the challenge of the third Kai layer disciple Sun Haijing. What had happened? But in front of so many eyes, even for people with unclear vision, they could not help but trust the events which had taken place before their eyes. From the start to the end of the battle, Yang Chen fought in a very ordinary way, using only his fists to attack and not using a bit of magic power or cultivation techniques to attack. At the same time, from start to finish, the Sun Haijing, a third Kai layer disciple, hadn't been able to use even one cultivation technique. Barely using 1,000 Jin talisman to attack, however, with such a great disparity between these two, Yang Chen easily avoided it. Good skills, good strength. Du Qian spoke out his views of Yang Chen while walking towards the Law Enforcement Hall. Though he had a favorable opinion of Yang Chen, it was still just a favorable impression and nothing more, so as to not let Yang Chen and Chu Heng develop any hostility with him. But the earlier battle by Yang Chen made Du Qian say a few praising words about him. Yang Chen had displayed his superiority in great detail, from releasing killing intent to affect Sun Haijing's mind, to ruthlessly punching him to stop him from using any techniques, then breaking Sun Haijing's arms, and in the end beating Sun Haijing unconscious. Yang Chen had done all of this in one breath's time, extremely efficiently. This made even Du Qian gasp with admiration. This praise from Du Qian had come from his heart. If he were in Yang Chen's position, even Du Qian was not able of guaranteeing that he could beat Sun Haijing so easily. Yang Chen not only accomplished it but also did it so beautifully, which naturally demanded heartfelt praise. Yang Chen looked as if he was unwilling to spare Sun Haijing, but it seemed more like he was slapping Chu Heng's face. While Chu Heng was treating Sun Haijing, Yang Chen kept on asking him. Uncle Master Chu, can this disciple start cultivating already? I need not become a servant for 10 years anymore, right? Uncle Master Chu, do the earlier words of Uncle Master not hold? After one inspection, it was determined that only Sun Haijing's arm and skull bone had suffered fractures with a few injuries, and Chu Heng had calmed his mind by then. Hearing Yang Chen's questioning again and again, he almost killed him on the spot. Finally he remembered that there was still a law enforcement hall's disciple on the side, so not daring to be excessively rash, he forced himself to nod. Not bad, you already challenged and defeated Sun Haijing, so naturally you can begin to cultivate. While speaking, he bit his lips with his teeth tightly so as not to explode on Yang Chen in anger, calming down only after a long time. Seize every opportunity and hope that next time you will still get so much good luck. Du Heng once again coldly humphed before rapidly leaving the monastery gate, carrying his seriously injured disciple. Uncle Master, you really praise me too much, this disciple only has some reckless strength, that's all, without luck it was out of question. Yang Chen said this with excessive modesty. When Chu Heng heard this, his silhouette paused for a moment before rapidly disappearing. How did you avoid Sun Haijing's 1000 Jin talisman? Du Qian was interested in this. A 1000 Jin talisman by a cultivator of the 3rd Kai layer had unexpectedly missed an ordinary person without using martial arts. This made the numerous cultivators who were present unable to endure it, therefore, Du Qian curiously asked Yang Chen about it. I didn't avoid it, Uncle Master Du. Yang Chen gave an honest reply to Du Qian. You didn't avoid it? Du Qian repeated without thinking, and suddenly he became aware of the something, paling with fright he asked again. You actually didn't avoid it? You were aware of the path of the 1000 Jin talisman? Not aware, Uncle Master. Yang Chen laughed and immediately replied. Only, since its name is 1000 Jin talisman, shouldn't it have the weight of 1000 Jin? If not, how could it so easily overwhelm senior son during a life and death situation? Du Qian did not know what to say now. Sun Haijing had suffered a great injustice. Earlier, when Yang Chen's killing intent had intimidated him, he had thrown the 1000 Jin talisman with great difficulty, believing that it would be able to suppress Yang Chen, but Yang Chen had recklessly continued on and in the end pushed down his body, throwing himself onto Sun Haijing. Which was equivalent to supporting the weight of Yang Chen's body with the 1000 Jin talisman. Originally Du Qian was still baffled, Sun Haijing was a 3rd Kai layer cultivator, when comparing him to Yang Chen, an ordinary mortal, how could there be such a great difference? But he hadn't been able to think of this. So that's why Sun Haijing's arm was broken so easily. It turns out this was the reason. However, Yang Chen had not shown any mercy, but this was also rather close to Du Qian's character. If Yang Chen wanted to beat someone, he should not stay his hand and efficiently settle the enmity, only that was the best policy. Looking at the surroundings, Du Qian discovered that the outer disciple responsible for the recruitment had already stopped. All of these Kai layer disciples were looking at him, waiting for him to instruct as the most senior person there. Continue with your duties. Du Qian gestured with his hands and stated, hardly paying any attention. Of course, recruiting outer disciples was not his duty, he had only appeared here after hearing that Chu Heng was making things difficult for someone. Now that the affair had already concluded, there was no need for him to stay here. Everyone loudly agreed and began to return to their duties without paying any more attention to Yang Chen. Upon seeing this, Du Qian also did not speak much and only hinted to Yang Chen meaningfully. You are already my Pure Yang Palace's outer disciple, do your best later, okay? Even without Du Qian's reminder, Yang Chen had already considered the situation of the surrounding outer disciples. If one were to speak from the beginning, they watched as Chu Heng master and disciple tried to suppress Yang Chen, but still they didn't speak up for him, so when Yang Chen had ruthlessly beaten Sun Haijing, this caused them some unhappiness. Man is such a strange creature, when they see that their equal is bullying the weak, they sympathize with the weak. But when the weaker person resists and is able to successfully fight back, it directly hurts their ego, as this individual whom they thought was weak, but it turned out to be totally different. The words "as the rabbit dies, the fox grieves" describes their interdependency quite well. If every person was like Yang Chen, how could they still experience the joy of being a senior? Who could have imagined that as soon as Yang Chen entered his teacher's sect, he would have to face these kind of circumstances? Yang Chen could not understand this. Yang Chen did not pay any more attention to this. In order to pay his respects to his teacher again, even if he had to cross mountains of dagger and seas of flame, he wouldn't care much. let alone these outer disciples, even if it were the 9 tribulations, they would still feel like a walk in the park to him. Master, wait for me, I have already entered the Puryang Palace and will soon become your apprentice. The test for verifying the spirit root ended very quickly. In only a day's time, 2,000 people were already examined. Only 20 people possessed a spirit root. All of these 20 people, including Zhanxian, joined as outer disciples. The bunch of 20 newly accepted outer disciples met with an inner disciple who lead them to the next place along the complicated mountain road, finally entering the Miking Mountain. After rushing for more than 10 miles on the mountain road, before midnight, they reached a manor halfway up the mountain. This is a place where you will cultivate for a long time. The disciple leading the way brought them to a hall and said to everyone. You all wait here, someone will come to arrange where you will live. Good luck to you all, work hard to become inner disciples in future. After speaking without paying attention to anyone, he departed. These 20 people were all looking at each other, not knowing what to do, all of them, except Zhanxian, who was standing at his original position. Zhanxian stood at one place calmly, but within his mind, the memories of the events that had taken place in this manner in his past life were surfacing, bit by bit. In those days, he had just entered Puryang Palace and was also brought to this manor, and he spent entire 3 years here. Zhanxian had almost no impression of these cultivators. But that is quite natural, as every year each sect would find some people who possess spirit roots and receive them as outer disciples. However, not every individual who possesses a spirit root would be successful in cultivation, many people are already ruthlessly eliminated at the first stage. In those days, apart from Zhanxian, everyone in his group had been eliminated, thus he didn't have any memories of them, which was entirely normal. In all of the commotion around him, Zhanxian calmly found a place to sit in the middle of the hall and started waiting. Of the other new disciples, each and everyone was cautious and apprehensive of their new surroundings, let alone sit down, they did not even move from their original place. Compared to Zhanxian, they seemed like a group of children who have not experienced the world. Soon, a person looking like an old manager appeared in the center of the hall with 2 healthy servants following behind him. Zhanxian didn't rise from his seat as he indeed knew this old manager very well. In his previous life, during these 3 years, he had lived according to this old manager's arrangements, so much so that the old manager did not even need to introduce anything to him. After the old manager came in, he looked at the group of standing people when he finally saw Zhanxian sitting leisurely. His brows slightly creased, but then immediately smoothed out. This old man is called Shangyuan Feng and is this Yishu Manor's overall manager, also the one in charge of everyone's life for the next 3 years. The old manager introduced himself. If everyone has any requests in the future, you can directly find this old man. Many thanks, Manager Shangyuan, for all your troubles. Zhanxian, who was smiling the entire time while Shangyuan Feng was speaking, stood up and cupped his hands, greeting him. Only after he moved did the other people manage to respond, following suit with him, everyone began to express their thanks towards Shangyuan Feng. He was the manager in charge of their lives in the future, naturally they could not easily offend him. Shangyuan Feng was extremely overjoyed at this, and he immediately took fancy to Zhanxian, who had shown quick-wittedness, together with respect towards him. Only, despite being overjoyed in his heart, he could not help but feel somewhat sorry, as the earlier greeting clearly showed him that Zhanxian could give a hard time to anybody, but with such clever words, why would he insist on completely offending Uncle Master Chu Heng at the time of the disciple selection? Henceforth, for 3 years, everyone will live here in Yishu Manor. Here, everyone will learn to read and gain enlightenment, observe the geography of the stars, learn to practice pharmacy and distinguish different herbs. After 3 years, everyone will participate in an official selection to become a genuine outer disciple of my Puryang Palace. Shangyuan Feng spoke directly, precisely informing everyone of their duties in this Yishu Manor. Hearing Shangyuan Feng's words, the bunch of new disciples started discussing between themselves and at last, one courageous disciple carefully asked. Manager, could it be that we are still not genuine outer disciples? Ha ha. Just because your body possesses a spirit root, you think you have the qualifications to become a genuine outer disciple? It is still out of question for you to become a disciple. Shangyuan Feng gently chuckled and explained to everyone. These 3 years are for everyone to build good a foundation and to select a proper cultivation path. At least in 3 years' time everyone has to reach the Kai gathering layer, and only then will everyone have the required talent to become a genuine disciple. Even if their body possessed a spirit root, it was still unlikely for everyone to receive a good education, like Zhanxian, who had spent the greater part of his childhood in a peasant household, there he could not demand to learn to read and write. Without the knowledge to read letters, how could he successfully read a rare book for immortal cultivation? As for the geography of the stars, practicing pharmacy and distinguishing different herbs, it would build the foundation for concocting pills of immortality in the future. To concoct pills it was necessary to learn to distinguish between different herbs, as well as to be familiar with different materials. As everyone managed to understand these many things and were no longer asking any questions, in their heart they felt a sense of urgency and concern. Previously they had believed that since their body possessed a spirit root they could immediately join an immortal sect and would rise, but they didn't anticipate that the body possessing a spirit root was just a required qualification and nothing more. When they heard that for 3 years not only they would have to build a foundation, but also cultivate to the first Kai layer, everyone couldn't help but feel pressured. If we haven't reached that realm at that time? Someone asked, nervously. By Pure Yang Palace's techniques should not be easily spread, so if at that time you cannot reach the first Kai layer, then you will have to become a servant for your whole life in this Yishu manner. Shang Yuanfeng coldly said, giving a chill to everyone's mind. Everyone looked towards the 2 healthy servants behind Shang Yuanfeng with concerned eyes, as if realizing something. You don't need to look, these 2 were not been able to cross the barrier 10 years ago. Seemingly aware of their thoughts, manager Shang Yuan warned them. Soon after that he instructed everyone. It's already quite late, so after eating you all find a place to settle down, and tomorrow morning someone will come to take you to fulfill your responsibilities. With the sound of a clap, suddenly 20 healthy servants appeared in the hall, the same as the number of new disciples. All of you can choose a servant, he will be responsible for your daily activities. Shang Yuanfeng pointed a finger to the surroundings, allowing everyone to choose. While everyone was looking at each other in dismay, manager Shang Yuan moved towards Yang Chen's side and said. Yang Chen, Uncle Master Chu Heng has said that, since you have already defeated a 3rd Kai layer disciple, you are qualified to cultivate 3rd Kai layer techniques. Afterwards in Yishu manner, you will be given proper treatment as an outer disciple. Yang Chen was gobsmacked to allow him to enjoy outer disciple status at this time. One should be aware that outer disciples could contest to become inner disciples and formally becoming an apprentice to a master to learn skills. How could Chu Heng have such good intentions? I am already an outer disciple. Yang Chen asked while creasing his brows, without showing the slightest amount of ecstasy to others. You will only get the treatment of outer disciples, that's all. Shang Yuanfeng laughingly explained. Soon after that he continued directly saying the most crucial point. Since you have already defeated a 3rd Kai layer disciple, this Yishu manner does not dare to give you any cultivation direction, you better do your best, alright. If you are enjoying the content let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 18 Explaining the Rules. This explanation from Shang Yuanfeng made Yang Chen understand everything in the end. Why Chu Heng had asked for his status to be raised this high when originally he was filled with malicious thoughts. Since Yang Chen had already received the status of a 3rd Kai layer outer disciple, the people responsible of guiding new disciples in the Yishu manner would not provide any guidance to Yang Chen. He was at the 3rd Kai layer, but still wanted to learn these unpopular mediocre introductory subjects just to amuse himself. If Yang Chen had been as ordinary as he was in his previous life, then that would have been the end of the story for him, he would have no means to learn to read and write. As he wouldn't have any knowledge of letters, then the rare books about cultivation methods would have made no sense to him and he wouldn't have known about the 5 phases of yin and yang. Wanting to cultivate to immortality like that, let alone 3 years, even if he had 30, he would still have remained a mediocre person and nothing more. Chu Heng had a definite goal. If Yang Chen was incapable of getting out of this predicament at the Yishu manner, he would be unable to move even one step further on the road to immortal cultivation. In this way, he not only entrusted this task to someone else, but also after Sun Haijing's condition would improve and he was able to cultivate for a few years, he could easily take Yang Chen's life in an oppressive way. Even if, at that time, he didn't want to take Yang Chen's life, Yang Chen could easily be demoted to a servant. When that happened, naturally he could think of many ways to return his humiliation and instead dishonor Yang Chen. According to an old saying, for a nobleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too long and it would take even more time to cultivate to immortality, hence he still had plenty of time to make Yang Chen repent for a lifetime. Yang Chen was aware that Yishu Manor's manager Shang Yuanfeng was an expert at the peak of the Kai layer. Since he was quite old, it was extremely unlikely for him to step into next realm, therefore he could only assume the responsibility of a manager here. Speaking of the manager, he was the manor's owner, responsible for guiding the newly recruited disciples of the Pure Yang Palace. As Xu Heng was an inner disciple at the foundation stage, Shang Yuanfeng would not dare to disobey his instructions. At that moment Yang Chen recalled that when he joined the Pure Yang Palace in his previous life, Chu Heng had already been an accomplished disciple whose deeds had spread far. Who could have thought that someone who had barely joined Pure Yang Palace had already offended a famous inner disciple? Only, even if Xu Heng was thousands or 10,000 times more famous, it was still not enough, as Yang Chen did absolutely not require this introductory foundation knowledge. Even if it was changed to advanced knowledge, he still wouldn't need it. The reason why he insisted on joining the Pure Yang Palace was just to pay his respects under his master again and fulfill his long-held wish. After Shang Yuanfeng finished saying all of this, Yang Chen's complexion didn't even change one bit. He stood up and once again expressed his thanks towards Shang Yuanfeng, then he walked away to the side of the hall. While passing, he pointed his finger towards a 40-year-old healthy servant who was considered to be the oldest, and then he immediately left. Shang Yuanfeng's eyes followed Yang Chen until he had walked far away. In his heart he secretly felt satisfied, but he merely shook his head slightly, heaved a sigh, and did not say anything. Following after the servant on a long corridor bridge and turning, for around 7 to 8 times, Yang Chen arrived at his residence. Within the residence 2 female and 1 male, for a total of 3 servants, were already waiting and seeing Yang Chen arrive, all of them saluted him to pay their respects. "My name is Yang Chen, you all can address me any way you want." Yang Chen didn't like them standing on ceremony, all of those servants were disciples who had been previously eliminated. They didn't seem very old, but one of them was a cultivator, it was only that they were at a lower realm, unable to become a genuine disciple, nothing more. The only thing that he could be sure of was that they all had methods to stop themselves from aging, as it seemed that their genuine age was far from what it appeared. The 4 servants didn't dare to be careless, one after another saluting again and calling him young Master Yang. This was a title Yang Chen had already enjoyed in his family manor for half-year, yet he did not adapt to it in the least bit, but he was still satisfied with this kind of address. After settling down and having a meal, Yang Chen lied down in his bedroom, which, compared to his family manor's lavish bedroom, was still somewhat more extravagant, and he closed his eyes to rest. But his spirit awareness had already shrouded the entire residence without alarming anyone. Those few servants had not started sleeping yet. In a small room on the outside, the servant who led the way was speaking of the events that had taken place in the hall, as the other servants laughed, feeling happy. "We don't need to serve this kind of master meticulously, after a few years he will also become one of us." Another male servant laughed, speaking out what was on everyone's mind. Although the other servants did not say anything, they nodded silently. When Yang Chen heard this, his lips curled upwards. Soon after that, not even caring about these people, he properly laid down in bed, as if to sleep, and started to cultivate his 3 purity secret. Worthy of being called the Supreme Elder's cultivation technique, it particularly specialized in tempering spirit awareness, even if he was lying down, he was still able to circulate it anywhere, just as before. This way Yang Chen would be able to practice his single technique anytime and anywhere. Even if there were other breathing techniques of highly respected immortal cultivators, he would have to sit and meditate properly to practice them. Resting that one night without any worries, Yang Chen got up early the next day. Afterwards, on one side Yang Chen enjoyed a delicious breakfast, while on the other side, the servant who led the way was explaining the arrangements in the manor. The servant's name was Shen Da, originally his body also possessed a spirit root, but his luck was no good and he reached the required Kai layer just 2 months after 3-year period, but by then he had already been demoted to a servant, now it had been 10 years already. Within these 10 years, apart from attending to the duties of a servant, he incessantly cultivated, expecting to break through to the foundation realm and become an inner disciple. The rules in the Pure Yang Palace were not at all inflexible, but only if one succeeded in reaching the foundation realm could anyone enter the inner courtyard. In fact, not just Shen Da, but all of the servants in the manor had similar thoughts. Apart from serving these newly entered disciples, they would also cultivate diligently, in the hope that someday in the future, they would be able to become a foundation stage expert and genuinely enter the Pure Yang Palace. All of this was Shen Da's own experience, naturally coming from him, all of this sounded completely logical. Yang Chen understood everything completely, but still waited for Shen Da to finish his explanation. After that he ordered Shen Da by waving his hands to show him around. He walked into a pavilion where a group of disciples was learning to read, and inside, there was a person who appeared to be the master, who was teaching a group of youngsters. On seeing Yang Chen and then looking towards Shen Da, he hurriedly got up and greeted Yang Chen. "Senior brother Yang, you have honored us with your presence, how about giving some guidance to these youngsters? I invite Senior Yang to the seat of honor." All of the disciples who were learning to read also stood up. They came to Yang Chen and bowed to him. "We greet Senior Yang." With a bitter smile, Yang Chen waved for them to disperse and continue with their work, as he could only turn around and leave. He had to turn back from several areas in succession, no matter whether they were practicing pharmacy or learning the geography of stars, regardless of what those disciples were studying, when they saw Yang Chen, all of them. including their teachers, stood up and personally came towards him, bowing and yelling "Senior Brother Yang," but not one person invited Yang Chen to visit and attend the classes. These people were all following proper etiquette so as not make Yang Chen angry in any way. After the whole morning was spent in this way, Yang Chen returned to his residence with Shen Da and lazily sat down on a chair, commanding him. "Shen Da, get lunch for me now." "Young Master Yang, lunch is in the kitchen, you can get it yourself." Shen Da sarcastically laughed while casually replying to him and then turned around to leave. One look at Yang Chen's bitter experience this morning at Yishu Manor and Shen Da immediately understood Yang Chen's status. He even predicted Yang Chen's end, therefore he would naturally not treat Yang Chen as a young master anymore. "Shen Da, do you think that with Chu Heng's instructions, I will be unable to raise my head in this Yishu Manor?" Yang Chen didn't seem surprised at Shen Da's behavior, looking lazy as before, and raised one of his legs to put it on the armrest of the extremely well-crafted chair and sloppily asked. "Young Master Yang." Shen Da turned around to look at Yang Chen with a smile that was not a smile. "Considering the rules, I will still call you young master. 15 years ago I was also your age, and I also believed that since my body possesses spirit root, my natural talent would surpass regular people, but now look at me, I am merely a servant and nothing more. But I am sure that after these 3 years you will also be the same as me, but my position will still be better off." "How are you sure about this?" Yang Chen asked, looking as lazy as before. "Without someone to guide you, young Master Yang, why do you think you will be able to pass?" Shen Da sarcastically smiled. "Are you under the impression that taking advantage of senior brother Sun when he was unprepared and mounting a sneak attack to knock him out, you could easily walk into Yishu Manor? At best you are a village brat with some brute force, that's all. After 3 years, you will just be my underling, do you still dare to make me serve you? Do the other servants also feel the same way?" Yang Chen still hadn't asked for the names of the other male and female servants yesterday, so he used something else as replacement. "That's right, young Master Yang." The other 3 servants had appeared at some unknown time from a small room on the side and stood by Shen Da's side. Another male servant smilingly replied. "We will only still call you young Master Yang in order to follow Manor's basic rules. However, young Master Yang will still have to take care of his own everyday life." Immediately, one female servant standing on the side said. "The sooner you adapt to it, the better it will be for you. Certainly, young Master Yang can offer us these materials to eat or drink, to refuse these would be disrespectful of us, we can enjoy these pleasures on behalf of young Master Yang." As the last female servant said this, the smiling expression on her face was spreading even more, as if a flower started blooming. "Manager Shangyuan has instructed us to provide young Master Yang with everything as a 3rd Kai layer disciple, and luckily we are just at the juncture of 3rd Kai layer, maybe these things can assist us to break through to the 4th layer." All 4 of them were talking one after another, as if they had already discussed this properly. Not only did they greedily covet Yang Chen's things, but also wanted to make Yang Chen tend to himself. Thanks to the heavens these people still had some awareness of their responsibilities and didn't try to make Yang Chen serve them. Even though both Chu Heng and Shangyuan Feng pretend to uphold the rules, in actuality Chu Heng wants to deal with me, an ordinary mortal, by using the loopholes in the rules. Yang Chen's lazy voice sounded out. "Are you even more ferocious than Shangyuan Feng or Chu Heng? You all act this way, are you not afraid of breaking any rules?" Listening to these words, the complexion of all of the servants drastically changed, but Yang Chen had still not stopped talking. "Even Chu Heng and Shangyuan Feng both maintain appearances when dealing with me, but you lowlifes don't even bother to keep up appearances. Just because you were all immersed in bitter cultivation, have your minds all become foolish?" Yang Chen still didn't move, but he had made Shen Da and the other 3 servants drip with sweat, unable to say anything. Yang Chen sneered in his heart and said. "Do you need me to report this present conversation to Shangyuan Feng and let him decide the argument?" "Young Master Yang, you surely jest." Shen Da completely ignored what he himself had said earlier and said. "We were only randomly speaking and haven't really asked you to do anything, do the words of a joke also count as an offense according to the rules?" "According to the rules." Yang Chen snorted. His voice suddenly became loud. "According to rules, even if my lunch is already on my lips, when I ask you to bring it to me, you have to bring it to me, even if you are just going to get it and bring it to the edge of my mouth again. And you speak of rules with me?" The 4 3rd Kai layer servants did not even dare to move in front of Yang Chen, who had just recently joined the Puryang Palace. Not even daring to raise their heads, they became quiet out of fear. The faces of these 4 were deathly pale as if someone has sucked out their vitality. "But I very much like you all for speaking this way to me, telling the truth." Seeing the attitude of the 4 servants, Yang Chen lightly nodded. At least compared to people who keep on speaking honeyed words to get ahead and those who nominally made me a third Kai layer disciple, but in fact forced people to not assist me in becoming stronger. Seeing Yang Chen change his tone again, all 4 servants were somewhat amazed and felt even less determined. Only after glancing at each other a few times were they able to look at Yang Chen again. "I also appreciate your bluntness," Yang Chen said without letting the servants know about his thoughts, but Yang Chen nevertheless understood their way of thinking. "Now I give you one chance. A chance to win these opportunities you just mentioned." "An opportunity?" Shen Da loudly asked, hastily. If Yang Chen informed Shang Yunfeng of their conversation, these 4 would have to suffer the consequences. Sect rules were sect rules and also applied to these servants. Since Yang Chen allowed them an opportunity, Shen Da would absolutely not miss it. "You 4 have to defeat me in battle." Yang Chen got up and indicated for those 4 servants to follow him, while he directly walked into a small courtyard in their residence. "Whether you fight alone or together, as long as you are able to defeat me, I will act as if the previous incident didn't occur and you all will also have nothing to worry about. As for those gifts which will be sent to me, they will all be yours without exception." "Are you serious?" Shen Da looked pleased as he hastily asked. If Yang Chen didn't raise this issue, even if Shang Yunfeng became aware of it, he could still not do anything to punish their crimes. Moreover, this would also allow senior brother Sun to vent his anger, so surely Uncle Master Chu would be pleased. "Certainly." Yang Chen's face revealed a smiling expression. "What benefits would I gain from cheating you servants?" Looking at Yang Chen's serious expression, it absolutely did not appear to be false. Shen Da turned around to glance at the other servants and suddenly a smile appeared on the faces of all 4. "These are your words, even if manager Shang Yuan becomes aware of this, he can still not blame us for breaking any rule. Isn't that right, manager?" "Certainly." Shang Yunfeng figure had unexpectedly appeared on the top of entrance of Yang Chen's residence at an unknown time. He gently laughed. "Just a moment ago I heard young Master Yang's words. Since it is young Master Yang's demand to compare notes with you all, naturally it will not be considered as breaking of any rules." A sinister smile had already spread across Shen Da's face. He was just about to move when Shang Yunfeng interfered. "Shen Da, young Master Yang has told all of you to come together, you all have to follow young Master Yang instructions. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more." Chapter 19 The Strength to Subdue a Group of 10. Yang Chen was not even a little bit surprised at Shang Yunfeng's appearance. The spiritual awareness of an expert at the peak of the Kai realm was enough to cover the entire Yishu Manor. Even if a blade of grass moved inside of the Yishu Manor because of some wind, it would still not escape his spiritual awareness, much less Yang Chen, who had been the focus of his attention. Thus not watching him attentively at all times would be terrible. It was just that he appeared only now and not when Shen Da and others were breaking the rules, while, above all, his first words were to remind those 4 to fight together, which was not good news as far as Yang Chen was concerned. If the person with real authority in Yishu Manor had such an attitude, naturally Shen Da and the others also became aware of what they should do. Anyway, Yang Chen's earlier words, saying they could either fight alone or come at him together, were all good, but he did not say anything in case he won. Naturally Shang Yunfeng exploited this mistake and started the fight before it could be discussed. In addition to that, Yang Chen didn't mention it, and winning is winning, at most Shen Da and others would obediently serve him, what could he gain? Due to the personal appearance of Shang Yunfeng supporting Shen Da and the others, their courage greatly increased, and these 4 people advanced forward at lightning speed, encircling Yang Chen. Yang Chen was not even looking at them, only watching Shang Yunfeng. Suddenly he smilingly asked. "Manager, don't you think it's quite lively?" "You flatter me." Shang Yunfeng slightly shook his head. He smilingly said. "This old man just has the right to punish notoriety, but the sect leader didn't permit me to hit new disciples." He only said this much, but Yang Chen understood everything. He was a master at the peak of the Kai layer, to kill an ordinary person would just be an insult to him. Furthermore, as long as he would touch him, it would be an elder generation taking unfair advantage of the younger generation, and he would definitely face the accusation of injuring a disciple of his own sect. Although not too many cared about the Yishu Manor, at least 1 or 2 inner disciple paid closely attention to it. Although the younger generation could compare notes with each other without any great problems, but Shang Yunfeng could definitely not interfere. In any case, 4 third Kai layer disciples dealing with Yang Chen alone, if even all of them could not beat him down, then Shen Da and the others deserved to become Yang Chen's servants. Originally their status was just as servants. If they were unable to beat him, could it be that they hoped that some outer disciple or possibly even an inner disciple would get a few servants out of their predicament? Hearing Shang Yunfeng's words, Yang Chen stopped paying any more attention to him, instead he slowly turned his attention towards his confinement by looking at those servants. Then, slightly smiling, he raised both of his hands, and in front of the faces of those servants, he unhurriedly bent down his hands, finger by finger, gripping them and forming two clenched fists. Then raising his chin, he indicated Shen Da, standing in front of him, as if asking him to bring it on. The first one to attack wasn't Shen Da, but rather a female servant standing behind Yang Chen. She suddenly ignited a paper talisman, and soon afterwards smoke filled the interior of the tiny courtyard. Shang Yuanfeng, looking from above, slightly nodded his head. These servants were much more clever than Sun Haijing to come up with a move to control the enemy and use this kind of strategy to interfere with Yang Chen's vision. All of the servants had spiritual awareness, so this ignited smoke could not stop their attacks, but Yang Chen's vision would immediately be restricted. But they hadn't noticed that this talisman's original name was Illusory Talisman. It had an intensely delicate bewildering effect, and as long as an ordinary person was covered in the smoke, illusions would start appearing automatically. These illusions could change according to master's thoughts. When interfering with one's mind, this talisman was most difficult to deal with, but the power of the talisman depended on the master's cultivation. Within the smoke, the terrible sound of a child wailing appeared, boo-hoo, seemingly countless spirits demanding vengeance for their grievances were wrapping around Yang Chen. Actually, the female servant was aware of Yang Chen's background as an executioner, that's why she intentionally used the illusory talisman to make these departed spirits, who were demanding their vengeance, appear. Within the smoke, Yang Chen was standing motionless, as his eyes were looking at the ghosts, only Yang Chen's complexion didn't change even one bit. He coldly snorted. "Humph, insignificant talent, when you were all alive I chopped off your heads, don't tell me I should be afraid of you after you died. Disperse for me." With a loud snap, the female servant controlling the illusory talisman suddenly started shaking, as if she had received some kind of shock. When the illusory talisman was used to scare Yang Chen, naturally her spiritual awareness had also been scattered within it, with Yang Chen's loud shout, as if that spiritual awareness had become agitated, instead of intimidating Yang Chen, her own mind was shaken. Whoosh. Whoosh. Within the smoke, two balls of fire flew towards Yang Chen almost noiselessly from both sides, and their talisman power also started to attack. It seemed as if Yang Chen had grown eyes on the back of his head as he suddenly twisted his body and slammed both of his fists, left and right, and each fist accurately landed on the two fireballs flying towards him. Bang. Bang. Two sounds echoed in quick succession, both of the fireballs burst open, but didn't even harm a hair on Yang Chen's body, only his fists turned black. Just as Yang Chen destroyed those fire talismans, suddenly a fiercely violent sound was emitted above Yang Chen's head as a long rod, as thick as an arm, was smashing down towards his head. The sound caused by the wind would frighten normal people easily. This was Shen Da's strategy, a metal rod as long as his body, although it was not a cultivation tool, it still had considerable weight. Shen Da had taken great pains to make 1,000 Jin talisman and attach it to the rod. When holding it in his hands, its weight was almost ordinary, but when it was smashed on the ground, its strength increased to 1,000 Jin. Even if there was a metal ingot, Shen Da was confident that one smash from the rod could turn it into a flat metal slice. Shang Yuanfeng had closed his eyes, he was using his spiritual awareness to observe everything happening below. He had helped Shen Da with his rod, so naturally he was aware of its effects. In his heart, he believed that one smash from the rod would conclude things, but the next moment he suddenly opened his eyes, looking at the unfathomable events taking place. Within the small courtyard of the residence, Yang Chen had extended only one hand to grab that was rod fiercely smashing down on him. Shen Da was rather confident in the rod, but 1,000 Jin's weight were suddenly stopped with a muffled sound. Yang Chen's figure was standing motionlessly as if this great power didn't affect him in the slightest. Shen Da's eyes were opened wide, he hadn't come across these kinds of circumstances before. Even if it was the inner disciple expert of Yishu Manor, when comparing notes he had also not been able to use brute force to stop this rod. But right now, unexpectedly Yang Chen had used just one hand to stop his powerful rod, how could Shen Da not be extremely shocked? Just this one was moment of shock provided Yang Chen an opportunity. Grabbing the rod's tip with his right hand, he forcefully shouted. "Let it go." Under the intense contest, both Shen Da and his rod were unable to resist the pull forwards. Shen Da's spiritual awareness had been tightly following Yang Chen's nimble but random punches. He was clearly looking at Yang Chen's movements, but it seemed as if his body had stopped listening to him. He tried to dodge those punches, but Yang Chen's fist had already smashed firmly into his face. Whoosh. Shen Da's body rapidly flew into the air, moving away from the confinement, and finally bumped against the courtyard's walls. With a loud splatter, Shen Da's body motionlessly fell down to the foot of the wall. According to Shang Yuanfeng's observation through his spiritual awareness, Yang Chen had only used one hand to grab the head of the rod. Shen Da's metal rod was very heavy, he was very clear about that. Adding the strength of the 1000 Jin talisman to its own strength, the total weight of the rod would be around 1035 Jins, but Yang Chen had stopped that rod without even moving 1 inch from his place. It was indeed something that could make people gasp in amazement. Until today Shang Yuanfeng had never believed that Sun Haijing had lost to Yang Chen due to carelessness. Based on the strength Yang Chen had shown today, Sun Haijing using 1000 Jin talisman at that time had indeed been a great mistake. Even if his mind hadn't been shaken by Yang Chen's murderous spirit, he would still not have been Yang Chen's opponent. If only he would have used some other methods. Merely, at that time, as soon as he got close to Yang Chen's fist, he immediately lost consciousness, so where would the other methods come from? Taking care of Sun Haijing was easy, but taking care of Shen Da was also easy. Both were a third Kai realm, and although their spirit power was able to nurse their bodies, Yang Chen had already spent many years as an immortal. His best aspect had been his agile body, but the disparity as compared to before was still quite large. Even Yang Chen had no exact idea of his complete strength at the moment, but just for blocking 1000 Jin talisman and a metal rod, it was more than enough. Yang Chen began to violently swing the metal rod in his hand. Yang Chen was not moving it in any pattern, just simply swinging the metal rod, forming a circle that was revolving around his body while making buzzing sounds. The smoke in the area was apparently stirred due to this sort of enormous strength and slowly began to show signs of dissipating. This alarmed the other 3 servants greatly. The female servant who was controlling the illusory talisman hurriedly fished out an embroidered ribbon, which was fully packed with pictures of various sorts. The female servant seemingly cherished this embroidered ribbon very much, but the present circumstances were beyond her control. With her hand she had activated a secret art and suddenly the embroidered ribbon flew. CC. The embroidered ribbon rose like a poisonous snake, rapidly trapping Yang Chen and soon after that restraining the arm which held the rod. The embroidered ribbon was tightening down on his body as if it had managed to come alive as it brushed across Yang Chen's body and coiled around it so as to bind it. Even Yang Chen couldn't help but nod in his heart. This embroidered ribbon of the female servant was a magical device with potential to develop. It was just that the class of the refining method was not high enough and that the materials used to make it were quite low grade, thus it could only be used to twist around an enemy to control him, unable to fatally injure him. At best it would play a good role for containing the enemy. The 2 other servants, seeing that Yang Chen had already been twisted in the embroidered ribbon, were quite pleased in their hearts. One of the servants launched a bright palm containing raging flames towards Yang Chen's stomach. The other servant fished out a peach wood sword from somewhere and a translucent beam of light stabbed towards Yang Chen's throat to kill him. Even though Yang Chen only wanted to compare notes with the appearance of Shang Yuanfeng, when these servants started to fight, they had already stopped caring about Yang Chen's life and started attacking his vital organs. Just as the blazing palm and the peach wood sword reached his body, Yang Chen suddenly shouted loudly and forcefully straightened the embroidered ribbon, twisting around his body with his arms. After that, it issued few rattling sound before snapping into a few pieces with a loud bang. Under Yang Chen's control, the rod in his arm incessantly swung towards the 2 servants who had wanted to take his life. The female servant holding the peach wood sword was greatly astonished. Seeing that the iron rod would soon sweep at her body and that she would not be able to deal with it during that imminent peril, she instinctively raised the peach wood sword, trying to block it. Bang. An oppressive sound was produced and the peach wood sword immediately broke off at the guard. Watching this scene, the mind of the female servant simply broke down. All of the people lifelessly looked at the sword hilt within her hand and halted at the same place. The rod in Yang Chen's hand suddenly halted and was then pulled backwards. The iron rod's other head struck the hand of the male servant approaching from behind. The male servant ignited a blazing fire within the palm of his hand. Hacha. The sound of breaking suddenly echoed and within the blink of an eye, his wrist was bent at a strange angle. At this moment Yang Chen turned towards the stunned female servant who still hadn't come back to her senses. Just as the male servant produced a blood-curdling scream, Yang Chen's fist had already attacked the female servant's face. One fist after another continuously attacked the female servant's face. Yang Chen didn't show one bit of mercy on account of her being female. Under the assault, the body of the female servant soon failed to rise and flew into the air before falling onto the ground some distance away and thus became motionless. The male servant behind him saw the miserable condition of the female and immediately stopped shrieking, but Yang Chen had already turned towards him. Alarmed, the male servant subconsciously retreated backwards as fast as he could. He directly withdrew to the foot of the wall without even becoming aware of it. With his body leaning against the wall, the male servant opened his eyes and was shocked to see the situation. From the side of his head rod, as thick as an arm, was pounded repeatedly at the position where the servant's skull was. Bang. Bang. Due to the repeated pounding, a hole was created in the wall, around the size of a head, with rocks flying everywhere. Yang Chen's silhouette followed soon after the arrival of the rod, and suddenly he drew close to the male servant's body. With an explosion, the wall of the abode caved in, forming a hole. The male servant lost consciousness without saying a word. The female servant controlling the illusory talisman had seen everything clearly. She hadn't anticipated any of this, 4 people with a cultivation of the 3rd Kai layer, each lost miserably when confronting an ordinary person who had never cultivated before. It was unknown whether 3 of them were alive or dead, and only she was remaining. She had never faced these kinds of circumstances before, hence she did not know what to do. Regardless of her thoughts, Yang Chen threw the iron rod at her. Greatly alarmed, she hastily tried to scuttle out of the way, and just in the nick of time, could she dodge the rod. Looking behind her, she laughed loudly when seeing the iron rod inserted at the place where her foot had been just a moment ago. But Yang Chen had already rushed towards her when the female servant astonishingly abandoned the others and hurriedly started to rise, using a soaring technique she had recently learned. Soaring in the air, she decided to escape. But the rising female servant gave Yang Chen an exceptionally good opportunity. At this very moment, the female servant was directly between Yang Chen and Shangyuan Feng, who was standing on top of the entrance. Reaching out for the rod below his feet, Yang Chen's hand grabbed one end of the rod. Turning his body in a circle, he used the power of his rotation and powerfully threw the rod, physically exhausting himself in the process. Though its target appeared to be the female servant, it was actually aimed at Shangyuan Feng. The female servant in the air still hadn't rose high enough before suddenly something grabbed her foot and destroyed her balance. From afar it looked like Yang Chen's hand had grabbed the female servant's leg, raising her high before whipping her onto ground severely. The rod in the air, without losing even a bit of its speed, flew directly towards Shangyuan Feng. Shangyuan Feng's complexion drastically changed. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 20 I Can Guide You. The speed of the rod was very fast and its power quite pressing, but it was unable to endanger Shangyuan Feng in any way. Even if he lightly dodged, he could immediately get out of the way. But Shangyuan Feng unexpectedly did neither evade, nor did he have any intention to do so. Today, if he decided to get out of the way, then tomorrow the entire Yishu Manor and even the inner courtyard would assemble outside of the entrance of Yishu Manor to make fun of the fact that, facing a person who had just joined Puryang Palace a few days ago as preparatory outer disciple, he had been forced to use martial techniques to get out of the way. If this news were to spread to the outside, that would be even more embarrassing than death for Shangyuan Feng. So Shangyuan Feng could not dodge and could only catch it firmly. Towards a person who had barely joined as a preparatory disciple and hadn't even cultivated any cultivation technique, throwing the metal rod, the adult manager had to break his confidence and stop this, only then he would be able to keep Yang Chen under control and illustrate the might of Yishu Manor. Like Yang Chen had done before, Shangyuan Feng extended only one hand to grab the flying metal rod. That female servant had been between Yang Chen and Shangyuan Feng, and now that metal rod coming towards him seemed like a giant siege crossbow in Shangyuan Feng's point of view, and he was going to catch the head of this giant siege crossbow. Shua. Just as the iron rod came into contact with his hand, Shangyuan Feng loudly shouted. Not good. The large impulse almost made his entire body go along with the metal rod's trajectory and fly off. Fortunately, Shangyuan Feng was alert at all times, so at the most critical time, he used his other hand at lightning speed to keep the rod under control, but at the same time his body sank and halted at the same place as before, like a steel-cast image of an ancient god. Despite this, the metal rod within his hand still slipped out of his palm for a length of no less than half a foot, and the violent friction made Shangyuan Feng feel a burning hot sensation in the hollow of his palm. But in this short moment, Shangyuan Feng had already swiftly destroyed the painstakingly engraved Thousand Jing talisman at the top of the rod. Just as the Thousand Jin talisman was destroyed, the weight of the iron rod suddenly lightened many times, and holding it was not that laborious anymore. Its forward momentum had also decreased due to the lower weight. Hence the metal rod was clamped within Shangyuan Feng's hands and was unable to budge anymore. Fortunately, he was able to stop the metal rod at long last, using only his hands with almost 80% of his power. Only then was he able to overcome Yang Chen's power and could block his powerful throw. Shangyuan Feng knew that it was due to destroying the Thousand Jin talisman and some cheap tricks, but to the outsiders looking on, it seemed as if he had received Yang Chen's throw, face to face, directly and quite elegantly. Just as manager Shangyuan relaxed, under his foot, 2 loud cracking noises arose as a 2-foot tile on top of the entrance gate suddenly split open and shattered into many pieces. The force had been too fierce, and although Shang Yuanfeng had already exercised sufficient control over it and had neutralized the impulse at that time, the force still passed on through his feet and the 2-foot tile of common materials was unable to endure it and immediately shattered. Hearing the sound, Shang Yuanfeng immediately knew what had happened without looking. He could not help but smile bitterly. In this exchange between them, Yang Chen had come out as the winner. He himself was an expert at the peak of the Kai layer, facing an ordinary person would be degrading his status, but now, even after using 80% of his strength, this tile under his feet had still been shattered completely. He had completely lost face now. Ah. Not good. Yang Chen's voice came from below. Actually, he had already subdued that female servant and was facing upwards, watching leisurely, but nevertheless there was not a bit of sincerity when he cried out in fear loudly. "Take care, manager Shang Yuan." Shang Yuanfeng wasn't enraged by Yang Chen's attitude. As the manager of the Yishu Manor, he had seen too many talented individuals to care about Yang Chen's minor ridicule. Curious, he asked Yang Chen. "Yang Chen, what kind of miracle medicine did Shy Fairy give you that you actually have so much strength?" "How would I know?" Yang Chen smiled at him, but also did not conceal anything and directly answered him. "Originally I already had great strength, but after eating the medicine given to me by Shy Fairy, it has increased by much, but she did not tell me anything about that medicine." After Yang Chen explained all this, Shang Yuanfeng nodded in his heart. He is just an insignificant executioner, how could he recognize the medicinal pellet given to him by Shy Fairy? Suddenly he thought of something and he asked Yang Chen again. "Yang Chen, have you practiced martial arts before?" "I have followed my county town's experienced military drill master for several days." Yang Chen told a half-truth. He had indeed practiced martial arts, only he had not followed his town's military drill master. He had actually practiced the Heavenly Court secret martial technique, which was used to increase the strength of celestial troops and generals. Compared to techniques of the mortal world, it was several times better. Listening to Yang Chen's reply, Shang Yuanfeng's thoughts changed countless times. A common person practicing martial arts, even with great innate power, he could still not have the strength of 1,000 jin. The only explanation could be the medicinal pellet given to Yang Chen by Shy Fairy. But if it was just an ordinary relationship, who would give such a precious medicinal pill as present to strangers? There could be only one reason for this. Yang Chen and Shy Fairy, even if they don't have a very friendly or intimate relationship, should at least have some ties of blood or have some other kind of relationship. Otherwise, if he were replaced by any other person, she would not give away this kind of precious medicinal pill. Perhaps Chu Heng had also received benefits from others to make things difficult for Yang Chen, but Shang Yuanfeng did not need to participate in this. Although Chu Heng was an inner disciple, Shy Fairy on the contrary was popular throughout the entire cultivation world and had the reputation of being young and outstanding. Both of them could not be mentioned in the same sentence. For Chu Heng to offend Shy Fairy for someone else's friendship, this had to be taken into account very carefully. "Manager, can these 4 people now be considered as having lost?" Just as Shang Yuanfeng was muttering to himself, he heard Yang Chen's questioning voice. Looking at the circumstances below, Shang Yuanfeng could not help but shake his head. Of the 4 beaten servants, the first, Shen Da, had been beaten so much that it was not known whether he was dead or alive. On the face of the one who had been using the peach wooden sword, a fist imprint could still be seen. The other male servant who had flames within his palms looked as if several of his ribs were entirely broken, and the remaining female servant, who had soared in the sky and had finally fallen on the ground, had not yet determined injuries. Nevertheless, all 4 had indeed lost their consciousness. If this was not called winning, then what is losing? Even if Chu Heng had been here and he had wanted to make Yang Chen lose, in his heart, under such circumstances, he would also not be able to say even one word. "You win." Shang Yuanfeng could only nod. "That is good." Yang Chen didn't raise any objection. Extending his hand to point towards the 4 people lying on ground, he said to Shang Yuanfeng. "Manager Shang Yuan, I will have to trouble you to treat their injuries. Furthermore, seeing this place, I fear I would require a new place to live, so I will have to trouble manager for the arrangements." Shang Yuanfeng was not angered by Yang Chen's commanding tone. He was the manager, so these kinds of matters were just his responsibilities. After nodding, Shang Yuanfeng asked. "How about substituting them for a few obedient servants?" "No need." Yang Chen shook his head. "I have handled these with great difficulty. Exchange these for new ones, only to beat them again." Shang Yuanfeng's speed was very fast and in less than a moment, someone came over at lightning speed to take these 4 injured and unconscious servants for treatment. Shang Yuanfeng himself looked after Yang Chen and exchanged his previous residence for a courtyard that was apparently more lavish and refined when compared to the previous one. The servants serving here were already waiting and solemnly welcomed Yang Chen and Shang Yuanfeng. This profound pavilion is the dwelling place of supervising inner disciples who come to inspect and test the outer preparatory disciples of my Pure Yang Palace. Shang Yuanfeng enthusiastically introduced Yang Chen. From now on, for 3 years, it belongs to you. Manager Shang Yuan, isn't this breaking the rules? Yang Chen naturally knew about this profound pavilion. Unexpectedly Shang Yuanfeng had arranged this courtyard for Yang Chen to live in. This made Yang Chen unable to say anything as he had no idea about Shang Yuanfeng's intentions. This courtyard originally had double the number of servants, including those 4 servants of yours. After their injuries are treated, they will immediately be transferred here. Shang Yuanfeng nevertheless did not reply to Yang Chen's question. As if just minding his own business, he said. Anyway, you will live here, as no one in the Yishu Manor currently owns it. Manager. Yang Chen had no choice but to ask Shang Yuanfeng again. This is not in compliance with the sect rules. What rules? Those are not rules. Usually we are just accustomed to these kinds of arrangements, but it isn't stated anywhere that we absolutely must follow them. You can relieve your mind and live here. This is not counted as breaking the rules. Shang Yuanfeng indifferently said, showing off right now. After having seen and experienced Yang Chen's battle prowess earlier, Shang Yuanfeng had totally changed his attitude. Previously, due to Uncle Master Chu Heng's instructions, I had no choice but to punish you according to his arrangements, but after witnessing your earlier battle, my mind has cleared up. You still haven't cultivated but already have this kind of strength. If you successfully cultivate to the Kai layer or the Foundation realm, I don't know what kind of frightening talent you will become. Shang Yuanfeng, upon seeing Yang Chen's distrust, slowly explained this to him. I think highly of you. Just thinking highly of Yang Chen's future, this explanation was not at all sufficient to remove the doubts in Yang Chen's heart. Under these kind of circumstances, if Yang Chen's new privileges were to provoke Chu Heng's anger and he could slyly use some underhanded methods to dispose Yang Chen, that would not be good. Far too many cultivation geniuses have died before maturing due to various sorts of unexpected accidents. You are different from others, you are someone whom even Shy Fairy highly thinks of. Shang Yuanfeng continued speaking. Even if greatest Sky Sect's Li King Chen feels jealous, he still cannot dare to ask for your life. As for Chu Heng, he would dare even less. He can only use his status as a famous inner disciple to arrange layer after layer of obstructions to hinder your progress, but nothing more. Rules are rules, if you are able to bypass his obstructions, who would dare to repeatedly hinder you? When Shang Yuanfeng had started speaking, he had addressed Chu Heng as Uncle Master Chu, but afterwards he directly addressed him by name. Clearly he absolutely resented these plans arranged by Chu Heng. After discussing to this point, Yang Chen was finally convinced that Shang Yuan sincerely did not want to cause him harm, but rather, due to Chu Heng's instructions, he had no choice but to act like this. He couldn't do anything about it, as Chu Heng was an inner disciple, and also quite an accomplished one at that. He was also skilled at persuasive argument, on one hand claimed wanting to help Yang Chen temper himself, but on the other, he created so many obstructions for Yang Chen and said. I permitted you to enjoy the status of a 3rd Kai layer disciple, don't tell me it is still not enough. As for others not daring to teach Yang Chen, this was the problem of other people, what did it have to do with Chu Heng? Thinking about these things, Yang Chen also let his guard down and lightly nodded, accepting Shang Yuanfeng's goodwill in the end. Younger brother Yang must still not have eaten lunch, I will immediately order someone to arrange it. Shang Yuanfeng also became aware that in the future there would be ample time for these things. He had not planned for things to go this way today. So after he finished instructing those servants, he intended to leave directly, but Yang Chen shouted to stop him. Younger brother Yang, do you still have other instructions? Shang Yuanfeng stopped on the spot and laughingly asked. Yang Chen held out his hand, as if inviting him and asked him to sit down. 2 female servants meaningfully glanced at each other, quickly served a fragrant tea, and then immediately retreated from the drawing hall. Manager Shang Yuan, do not blame me for talking as an outsider, but if I offend you in any way, I ask manager to forgive me. As soon as Yang Chen opened his mouth, he immediately tried to utter an excuse for himself, apparently he had planned to say some unpleasant things. However Shang Yuanfeng did not have any qualms, so he laughingly replied. There is no harm in just speaking. Then I will not be polite, Manager Shang Yuan. Yang Chen cupped his hand in respect towards Shang Yuanfeng. Afterwards he earnestly said. Manager, although I still haven't cultivated yet, I have still practiced martial arts for several days. I saw that, when manager tried to catch that rod thrown by me, you evidently used just one hand to take care of it, but that was not enough, and you had to use both hands in the end. Even if I suppose that you didn't use your full strength, it still broke a 2-foot tile under your feet. Yang Chen's words were related to the earlier battle's last moments, when Shang Yuanfeng had resolutely received Yang Chen's rod. What do you want to ask, exactly? Seeing Yang Chen's earnest words, Shang Yuanfeng thought Yang Chen was not a simple person. He asked with equal seriousness. Please advise me, younger disciple Yang. I do not dare. Yang Chen hastily interrupted. A strategy to estimate an opponent's strength but retaining an escape route is used very commonly and is entirely understandable. Only some situations require one to stake everything in one go, in a spurt of energy, but feeling fearful and nervous like then, and prudently thinking and calculating a clear method to handle things, would rather make this kind of situation a lost cause from the start. Under these situations it might be a better idea to make prompt decisions, overturning the cauldrons and sinking the boat, thinking that this is your moment to shine. Maybe under this kind of irresistible force the enemy will just become incapable of resisting. Yang Chen did not dare to give any advice when saying this, but his tone clearly indicated that he was sharing advice. Even the successive contents were all like that. At the beginning Shang Yuanfeng only appeared to pay attention, while disapproving within his heart. Yang Chen was using words to teach him a lesson about fighting, was this not insulting him? Only, the more Shang Yuanfeng heard, the more serious he became. When Yang Chen started to talk about certain situations, he immediately thought back to when he tried to attack the junction to the foundation stage. Could it be that Yang Chen was giving him advice on how to reach the foundation stage? However, when attacking the juncture, if, at the most crucial point, one has no choice but to hold back a portion of his power, then how should one proceed? Shang Yuanfeng couldn't help but ask, as if Yang Chen was some kind of master. Pushing a huge boulder takes a large amount of strength. Yang Chen wrinkled his brows, using an example to explain. However, if you use your full strength to push the boulder, it will be more rapid. If something is obstructing the huge boulder, it would naturally take several times more or even tenfold more strength. You can definitely preserve strength and slowly push the huge boulder at the top of the juncture, but then you have to add more power if you want to cross the barrier. You might as well push the boulder up and it will help you cross that juncture. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.